Let's be honest, we've all found ourselves raging at a referee's decision at some stage. This feel familiar?
That is an absolutely shocking decision.
They've got a case in that it was a bad decision.
It's such a poor decision.
Yeah, I think he's just made a bad decision in that instance.
But what does it take to get to the very top of football refereeing? Every referee starts with their county FA. It's a simple training course and you can take it as soon as you hit your 14th birthday. Once you've done that, you have to go through at least 11 hours of face-to-face training. You'll then graduate as a Level 7 official, which means you can take charge of county-level games. But hold your horses, there's still a long way to go to get to the Premier League. Your next step is to spend a year each at Levels 6, 5 and 4. This covers the top of the amateur game. Only at Level 3 do you start doing Northern Counties or Isthmian League level games, for example. If you've done this all quickly, you can reach Level 2 and ref your first National League match after, I don't know, 6 years? After getting enough experience at that level, you can apply to be a referee in the EFL. There's an interview, people watching you do games, and then, if the EFL are happy, you'll be granted a Level 1 licence to ref in games in League 2 and above. Now, they don't just say on you go to the Premier League, you have to work your way up through the divisions. Only after years of hard work and refereeing on cold Tuesday nights in Stoke can you be considered to do matches in some of Europe's very best stadiums. Now, who was the youngest to reach the very top? It was actually Michael Oliver. He refed his first Premier League match in 2010 at the tender age of just 25. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, crack on. It'll only take you roughly a decade, thousands of hours of work and an incredibly thick skin. In total, there are 37,000 registered referees across England, but the PGMOL has only deemed 21 good enough for the top flight. That means there's not even a 1 in 1,000 chance you'll even make it in. Obviously, referees can make mistakes, but when you think about it, having a go at them is kind of like slating a brain surgeon.
Welcome to Fight Night on TalkSport with me, Dave Farrar, and with him, Spencer the Omen Oliver. We have a huge 3 hours coming up for you, including Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua. Yeah, that's right. Jake Paul is taking on AJ on December the 19th in Miami, and we're going to be talking all about it. We'll be joined live in the studio by the Spider himself, by Craig Richards, and we'll be previewing, of course, David Benvidez against Anthony Yard. Takes place tonight in Saudi Arabia. Big card that as well. All that and much more here on Fight Night on TalkSport. Well, I am delighted to say that we're here. Spencer, have you ever won an award for broadcasting boxing on TalkSport?
Do you know what? We won an award. What was the award that I won? It was, I think it was at the Olympics, wasn't it?
How long?
I think it was at the Olympics. Yeah.
How long will it be before we stop mentioning it? Another 4 years?
Oh, absolutely. Until we win the next one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Go for the repeat.
Absolutely.
That is the way. That is the way. Now, I still can't believe we're saying this. We've got an action-packed show. I can very much believe that. But Anthony Joshua is going to box Jake Paul in a sanctioned bout over 8 rounds in Miami, coming up on December the 19th. I think we're going to talk to you about this, folks. But first, Spencer, what do you make of it? Does it make any sense? What are your initial thoughts?
Dave Farrar, I've been in boxing for 30-odd years, and I don't think I've ever come across anything like this. I get the world that we're living in today, and, you know, you got to give Jake Paul respect for actually stepping up to the plate. Is he that delusional that he seriously thinks, and he does, by the way, I truly believe, watching the press conference yesterday, I truly believe that he believes he's going to win the fight. That he's got to just get into range, land a shot, and he'll knock Anthony Joshua out. Well, trust me, that's a lot harder said than done. Like, yeah, I don't think I've ever come across anything like this. And we're talking about worlds apart here. Yeah, Jake Paul, respect what he's done. And, I was actually involved in his very first fight back in 2018, which was a white-collar fight against KSI's brother, Deji. And he beat Deji. I think he stopped Deji, actually. But it was an impressive sort of performance. It was all right at that sort of level. Then, obviously, he went on and, he had another couple of white-collar fights before eventually turning pro in 2020. And slowly and steadily, he's improving, he's moving on. But we're talking about a former two-time world heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, who in his last fight come off the floor 4 times before losing to Daniel Dubois. And you just look at this and you go, how has this happened? Only in this world can we get these guys in a ring together. I'm actually amazed that it was sanctioned. I don't think it would have got sanctioned if it was over here in Britain, but they've sanctioned it there. And Jake Paul, credit where credit's due, the kid fancies it, but it's going to be a tough night for him.
You mentioned 3 things there, and I think you could take issue with all of them. What did you say? He's got to get into range. He thinks he can get into range. He thinks he can land a shot, and then he can hurt him. I would take issue with all 3 of those straight away as to whether or not he can do it.
Yeah.
He's going to struggle to get into range. He's 6'1", AJ's 6'6". He's going to struggle to land a shot against a proper boxer. And if he does land a shot, he's going to struggle to hurt him, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Look, there is levels to this game. Like I say, Anthony Joshua's been competing at a high level. And like I say, Jake Paul's been doing well at his level. And he is improving. He is steadily improving. And, you got to respect that. And what he's done for the sport, by the way, as well, with MVP promotions for women's boxing. There is people now getting paid well. And so I think he's brilliant for boxing. But he's massively bitten off more than he can chew here going in against Anthony Joshua. But like I say, I'm just a little bit speechless over it all, because in what world would this fight ever happen? Only in the world that we live in today.
Well, the world of modern boxing is where this fight happens, isn't it? Now, AJ's got to make 245, hasn't he? He's got to weigh 245 pounds or under. Last time he did that was Usyk 2.
Yes.
Does that make it, which I still think is his best performance, but that's a different argument for a different day. But does that make any difference?
Well, it does make a difference,
doesn't it?
It does make a difference, and I'll tell you why. Because Anthony Joshua is best at the lighter weight. When he's coming heavy, that's when he's a little bit slower and his feet are a little slower. But 245 pounds, the second time he lost to Alexander Usyk, that's when he's at his most explosive. And he recognised that. That's why he come in at that weight against Usyk, because he was trying to match him for speed. He recognised that his feet have to be a bit quicker. So it's only going to benefit AJ, I think. And obviously, news broke that he is out there, which we already knew anyway. But I think he made it official that he's out there training with Team Alexander Usyk, which is an interesting move, to say the least. And yes, listen, it's going to be a huge event. People that say they won't watch it, they will watch it, because, when you get something like this with these guys that are so far apart, 2 different worlds in boxing terms, you just go, it sort of falls into that sort of freak show category where you go, you're so intrigued, you're going to have to watch it. And I think for Jake Paul, it's a win-win, because every second that ticks by, he's going to get more credit for. For Anthony Joshua, he's put himself into a space, and I know in the press conference he didn't want to mention what round it was going to end and how it was going to end, but Anthony Joshua has a lot of pressure on his shoulders, because he has to go out there and try and get this job done as quickly as possible. If Jake Paul gets through round 1, it's a tick box. Round 2, tick. Now and for Anthony Joshua, it's a big problem.
So just to be clear, because people say stuff, just to be clear, he's not going to carry him. As far as you're concerned, AJ's not going to carry him through or carry him into the later rounds like Mayweather did against McGregor. It's not going to be that. You think it's a proper fight over 8 rounds. You think Joshua will go in there and try and stop him as early as he can?
Absolutely. Anthony Joshua was meant to box tonight on this card out in Saudi Arabia, which we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show, but he was meant to be boxing as a surprise.
It's like unannounced, wasn't it? That was the idea.
Unannounced, and he was just going to do the ring walk, and people are, whoa, Anthony Joshua's here, and just go through an 8-rounder. Ironically, I forget the guy's name, but he's in Jake Paul's camp.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and he was injured, so the fight, was cancelled, and Anthony Joshua now gets this opportunity, and it is an opportunity for Anthony Joshua. I'll tell you why, because there's all rumours floating around. Is it £30 million? Is it £50 million? It could be as high as 70 million quid. I think that if he was boxing tonight, he would have probably been getting about $1 million. So you look at it, and it's the same process, Dave, that he's going to be going through. For Anthony Joshua, he's going to be looking at this going, this kid shouldn't be in my dressing room tying my boots. He's not fit enough. You know, that's pretty much where he's at in terms of boxing ability with Jake Paul. And he's going, right, I'm going through the same process here. I'm getting my hands wrapped. You know, I'm going through that process of doing the ring walk again, getting rid of the ring rust, smelling the arena, all of that stuff that he wanted to go through before trying this rebuild. He signed a 2-fight deal with Turki Al-Sheikh, and I think all roads lead to Tyson Fury. Don't know who that next opponent's going to be, but now he gets this opportunity against Jake Paul, and he must be thinking all these Christmases have come at once here.
Well, yeah, I mean, he always wanted a tune-up fight before next year. As you said, it was going to be tonight. We discovered recently, didn't we? We discovered this week, and effectively his tune-up fight is one for which he's going to be paid, as you say, at least 30 million, potentially more. It's going to be this huge event on Netflix as well. So, you know, a massive thing for Joshua. You can totally understand why he's taken it. Very little jeopardy in the fight, unless you say something remarkable happens and he takes him into the later rounds and so on and so forth. You know, Jake Paul said in that news conference that we'll hear a bit more about later on that I got where I am today because of delusional optimism, and delusion is delusion until it's not. So he's going in with that kind of attitude, isn't he?
Listen, all the self-belief, that's what I say. Like, you know, I look at Jake Paul and I watched him in that press conference and I go, you know what, where you've come from to where you've got to. And he talked about his journey in life, you know, with starting as a YouTuber, conquered that, become the biggest YouTube star, then moved on to other things, you know, working on Disney and all that sort of stuff, conquered that, then went into boxing, set up MVP Promotions, has now started making serious tracks in boxing as well, you know, changing people's lives. Women's boxing he's put now to the forefront. He's conquered that. Now he's going in and trying to cause the biggest upset in boxing history. And it will be the biggest upset in boxing history if he can do it. You got to respect the kid for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a sport of levels. We'll talk much more about it. We'll take your calls as well on this. I'm sure you've got a lot to say, but I'm not even sure the it's a sport of levels debate applies to this fight. We talked about this just beforehand, and I picked a name at random, and I mean no disrespect whatsoever, but Franklin Ignatius, who was going to fight Matty Harris on Channel 5 with me, of course, last night, and the fight was called off. Matty wasn't well. But, you know, Franklin Ignatius fighting Anthony Joshua, that's a sport of levels, because Joshua would be too good and would probably take Franklin out. Good fighter though he is. But this isn't even that.
No,
this isn't someone at the same weight. This isn't someone who's even a fighter.
Dave, that is the point.
It's a novice against the top 10 heavyweight in the world.
Jake Paul hasn't even proved that he belongs at that level. That's what I'm saying. Like, this is a kid that boxes at cruiserweight. Just so that everybody understands this. The fight, Anthony Joshua has been told he's got to come in at 245, but he makes that weight. That will improve his performance. But, for Jake Paul, that's why I'm sitting there. We're talking about delusional optimism. You go, I'm sitting here totally deluded by this whole thing and how it's happening. Like I say, I don't even think the fight would be allowed to be sanctioned in this country. That's where we're at with it.
Absolutely.
Because you're looking at it and you're going like, yes, it's one of those of absolute madness.
And it's a mad world, boxing. You spent many, many years and continue to spend many, many years in it. If I'd said to you 10 years ago that a fighter who used to be a YouTuber was fighting professionally and would switch from Tank Davis, fabulous fighter at his weight, to Anthony Joshua in the space of, 4 weeks, you'd have thought I was insane.
Do you know what?
Yet it's happening.
I'm going to make it even better. I'm going to juice this up even more. If you would have said to me back in 2018, when you put on that show up in Manchester Arena with Stuart Jones, Ops Management, who was then working with KSI, and they asked me to help do the promotion, asked me to sort of put the promotion together. If you would have said to me, there's a kid on there, Jake Paul, who boxed Deji, and if you would have said, look, that kid in a few years' time, 5, 6, 7 years' time, will be boxing Anthony Joshua, I would have actually said, you need to be sectioned, my friend. I would have actually gone there. I would have said, Dave, I love you, mate, but you really need to see someone. And now it's actually happening. It's bizarre.
Whatever next. I'll tell you what's next. We're going to take your calls and we're going to continue to discuss Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua. This is Fight Night on TalkSport. Welcome back to Fight Night here on TalkSport. We are talking, myself and Spencer Oliver. We're talking about Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. We're going to take your calls on this. The first of whom is Pat the Geezer, Chelsea fan. Pat, what have you got to say? Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, what are your thoughts?
Good evening, boys. How are you both?
I'm doing
Very
well.
well,
I think
mate.
Spencer's just hanging on. Hanging on, Pat.
Mate. Still trying to process it, Pat, if I'm totally honest, mate.
Well, what I'm going to say, Spencer, you said many, many months ago, with me, you and Adam Cattrall, there is room here for YouTubers. There is an audience for YouTubers.
Yes.
But what we're doing, Spencer, we're getting very dangerously towards the red line. Now, Anthony Joshua is an heavyweight ex-world champion, taking on the likes of a YouTuber, and as I just said, there is an audience for that sort of thing. But how close to the red line are we going to go? Listen, I don't blame Anthony Joshua one bit, because if that was me, I'd be going out of that sort of money. But he's got to sit down and have a look and think, if I injure this guy, it may play me up. It might not do me a lot of good. We've got to get sensible heads on here. I can't believe, Dave, that the Boxing Board of Control are allowing Queensberry rules on the rounds. How many more rules are going to get broken here before somebody gets seriously, seriously injured? As I said, and I agree with you, Spencer, there is room for this sort of audience, but not dragging professionals in. Now, years ago, Muhammad Ali fought a wrestler, and the British and the American, and I should think all over the world, thought, nah, you've got to be kidding. But they went, oh, it's only an exhibition, but he was an heavyweight world champion. You don't even think, and then again, that what money did he get to pull that stunt off? But these now are it's really getting close to the red line, and somebody's going to cross the red line, Oliver.
Go on, Spencer. How close? First of all, Pat, can I just say to you, Pat, Spencer, I'll let you talk in a second. I don't know if was Pat in our production meeting beforehand, because he's pretty much said everything that we said beforehand. So good on you, Pat, and thanks for your call as well, and great points that you make. Spencer, your reaction to that?
Yeah, Pat. And I'm sort of with you, mate. I understand that. Like I say, you fall into this where you're going, it's now becoming like, there is a space for YouTube boxing. And I get that, it's that, that's that new world that we live in. And I totally understand what they're doing. And Jake Paul is at the forefront of that. But now we're talking about, this isn't Mike Tyson here. When we went over to do the Mike Tyson fight and Mike Tyson got out the car when I first saw him, it become very evident to me that Mike Tyson could barely even walk at that point. So to see him getting in a boxing ring, you knew Jake Paul was in a safe space at that point. But we're talking about a guy here who's a two-time world heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, still very much at the top of his game, one of the elite heavyweights out there, whatever people say. But this is where I'm at, Pat. That I think that Jake Paul actually believes that he's just got to get himself into range to land that shot. But that's easier said than done. We're talking about levels to the game here, worlds apart. And it is worrying because you go, at what point, at what cost? Because he is sailing very close to the win, picking Anthony Joshua, because I know Joshua and I know him well. And he's a proud guy. And he will not want to lose any respect from this. And he knows that he's got to get this job done. So expect to see an aggressive Anthony Joshua, which is only bad for Jake Paul.
Pat, can I ask you a question back, if you don't mind? We're going to talk to Ian in a second as well. It's a simple question. Do you think this is sport? Do you think it's sport, Anthony Joshua fighting Jake Paul? Because I'm not sure.
Because it's not sport. Of course it's not. It's two disadvantages there, isn't there? I made my point from right at the top of the show here. Anthony Joshua, and Spencer just alluded to it, he's an Olympic champion. He's an heavyweight professional. Now, let's get that right. Professional sportsman. Jake Paul isn't. And there's the word. And Spencer, listen, thank you for listening to me tonight. And I'm very, very privileged to speak to you two boys. But Anthony Joshua should sit down and go, listen, if I injure this guy, I might not get over it. And do I want to be that guy? Sit down with somebody and have a chat. Yeah, going back to what you just said to me, Dave, yeah, there's a part here for fun. But it's professional boxing. And somebody is going to get hurt here. But listen, what do I know? I've only been round boxing for 70 years, Dave.
Well, listen, Pat, I've got to tell you, mate. I was saying to Dave, I think we said it on air, didn't we? I've been involved in professional boxing now for 30 years, and I can't recall anything like this. If I'm totally honest, I go like, look. In one respect, I respect Jake Paul for thinking that he's actually going to get this job done, because I truly believe that he thinks he's going to get the job done. But we're talking about Anthony Joshua here, for God's sake, and like this surely can only go one way.
That's right. That's my point, boys. Listen, been great talking to you.
Nice one, Pat.
I hope I've made valid points. I really do.
Really did, Pat. Great to talk to you. Thanks so much for your call. Now, Ian joins us on the line, boxing fan. Ian, a very good evening to you. Great to talk to you. What's your point about AJ against Jake Paul?
I don't think the fight should go ahead. When AJ fought in Ngannou, Darren Barker said it was the biggest punch he ever seen, and that's against a 265-pound warrior. If Joshua catches him clean like that, he will be either seriously injured or almost fatally injured. And I think it's a travesty. This even is. You look at his boxing record, he's never fought anyone. If Joshua catches him, there'll be a serious, serious medical problem for Paul, and it will drag boxing and everything into disrepute for decades.
And so you have a serious fear that there's damage to Jake Paul, but also a serious fear for the sport if this goes ahead, Ian.
100%.
Yeah, it's an interesting point of view. What are your thoughts on that, Spence?
Listen, Ian's got a valid point, because does it put boxing into disrepute if, God forbid, something does happen, to Jake Paul? And that is an argument that we will have, because you go, there is, like, I keep saying it, I sound like a stuck record, but I go, there is levels to this game. And it wouldn't get sanctioned if it was going on under British Boxing Board of Control rules here in Britain, but they have allowed it in America, and it's with 10-ounce gloves on as well. Like, we were talking in the back room, Dave, weren't we, when we were having the production meeting? I'm trying to process this, and I'm trying to see if there's a way that Jake Paul could have any sort of slim chance of winning this contest. And there isn't. That's where I'm at with it. That's where I'm at. And, you just hope that they have all the right procedures in place, I suppose.
Ian, while you're there, can I just ask your view on sort of... I know, we're not in his head, of course, Anthony Joshua, but from his perspective, we've made it sound very simple, haven't we? That, if any of us were offered that kind of money to fight, you'd fight, wouldn't you? And take the money. It was going to be a tune-up fight anyway for next year, leading towards Tyson Fury in the summer. So do you have any issue with Joshua taking the fight?
I don't really know in terms of... He might think it's like all fun and games, and he can just, walk him around the ring for a couple of rounds, but instinct will prevail. Like I said, if he hit, you've got to look at his record. He's never fought an elite professional boxer of any level, let alone a heavyweight. Tyrone Woodley dived in the second fight. He's on his payroll. He's never fought a proper professional fight. Look at what Joshua did to Ngannou. Ngannou was unconscious for 6 minutes.
And Ngannou, allegedly one of the great chins in the world of fight sports as well.
Listen, Ian, I think from Anthony Joshua's point of view, he's saying he was going to be fighting tonight. He was going to do a surprise turnout tonight on this undercard of David Benvidez versus Anthony Yarde. He was going to do an 8-rounder, so he was very much in training. And for Anthony Joshua, there's 2 fights, big fights that are going to be happening for him next year. And this was like the warm-up fight. So he just wanted to go through the motions of sitting in the dressing room, smelling the dressing room, getting the hands wrapped, doing that ring walk again, getting rid of that ring rust, getting back into a boxing ring, getting back to winning ways. That's what it was all about. And he would have been doing that against this guy who, ironically, is actually in Jake Paul's camp. Guys got injured. Anthony Joshua would have probably been picking up $1 million for that. So when you get offered, there's some rumours saying that he's getting 70 million quid for this. So when you get offered that sort of money, for Anthony Joshua, and from his point of view, he's going, This is called prize fighting, and this is why I'm saying yes, please, because he's going through that same motion that he would have been going through anyway. So from Joshua's point of view, of course he'll do it.
No, you know as well as I do, anything can happen in the boxing ring. And if someone isn't properly prepared, properly trained, it's just not. It's just not going to be good, especially with a fighter. You know, Spencer, a fighter's instinct, especially, God forbid, Paul catches him. What's he going to do?
Oh, listen,
that's the argument, isn't it, that Joshua sees red, and Joshua's thinking of walking him round as Ian's described, and then Paul catches him with a shot, and then walks onto another one, and that gets really problematic.
Joshua's made this quite clear that he wants to go out there and get this job done, and he said, in his words, I want to hurt him. I'm going to go out there to hurt him. I'm taking this as a proper fight. I'm showing him the respect, that I have to show him to get himself in that right frame of mind. So he's going through that process. So you go like, in one respect, I respect Jake Paul for taking the fight. But on the other hand, you just think, do you realise what you're getting yourself into here?
Yeah, well, Ian, thanks very much for your call and great points that you make as well. We got Scott. Scott, if you could just wait a few moments, we're going to go to a break. I think I want you to have a chance to make your point. We've got Craig Richards on the way as well. One thing I want everyone to think about, though, and it's something that I've said to you, Spencer, and I want us all to think about this as the show develops and maybe take calls on this too, almost a more philosophical point. What is it that makes boxing vulnerable to this? What is it that makes boxing vulnerable? Jake Paul would not run against the Olympic 100-metre champion. You know what? Because no one would watch it, because it would be half the track. He would not play tennis against Carlos Alcaraz. You know why? Because it'd be 6-love, 6-love, 6-love. Wouldn't be watchable. What is it? Because the levels are the same, Spence. They are. Him fighting Anthony Joshua is arguably as silly as in playing Yannick Sinner at tennis or facing Ben Stokes or whatever you want to say. But why is boxing so vulnerable to this? I'm going to get your answer after the break, because we'll take one in a second. I want to hear what Scott's got to say. I want to hear what you've got to say. We love this sport. He boxed for years. He was fantastic European champion, would have been world champion. I've loved this sport all my life. I'm sure Ian and all the guys who've called in have as well. Why are we vulnerable? Why are we vulnerable to this and no other sport is? Anyway, end of rant. We're going to be joined live in the studio by a fine fighter himself, the Spider, Craig Richards. This is Fight Night, and it's punchy tonight on TalkSport. You're listening to Fight Night here on TalkSport. We have a hot debate. We've got you on the lines. We've got Craig Richards coming very, very shortly. But Scott, thank you so much for your patience, my friend. Rangers fan on the line. What do you make? What are your initial thoughts about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
To be perfect, evening guys. Great show. Love listening to you, Spencer, and that when you're on with Simon Jordan and Jim doing your boxing talk. Love listening to you every day. But Brilliant. My main question I was going to speak to you about was what the last guy chap that was on talking to you about him getting seriously hurt. And Spence, you just mentioned that Joshua, says that he wants to hurt him. So what do we do? What does boxing do if Joshua kills this guy?
Well, this is the conversation that we were just having there. You know, you go boxing. Does it put boxing into disrepute because of the levels of this one? You know, and the game is all about levels. You know, and that's why you have. Yeah. You know, you have different titles, different sanctioning bodies and fighters that, you know, get to it. It's like this, right? This is where I'm at with it. You go, at this level of Anthony Joshua's career, would he be allowed to box, let's say, a journeyman that has won 10 and lost 25? You know, but was decent. No. It was a decent journeyman. You go, that wouldn't happen, would it? It wouldn't, you know, you couldn't have that. So, but I just think it's this world that we live in now and this space that we're in. I get the whole YouTube thing and I totally understand it. And I think what Jake Paul's done is brilliant. And by the way, I respect him because he's got some cojones for going into this fight with Anthony Joshua. But you're right in what you say, mate. Like, if, God forbid, something happens, where does that lead the sport of boxing? I totally get that.
See, when you go back to the days of Eubank and that, and when they hurt that boy Michael
Watson,
for years they were trying to stop boxing.
Yeah,
and you've been fighting against it for a long time to make sure you keep getting to boxing, try and making it safer and everything else. That boy dies in that ring. I think this could be the end of boxing when you've got the woke people who want to stop all these kinds of sports.
Yeah, well, that was back in, what was that, 1990, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was actually the next fighter to get injured in a ring, you know, from that 1998, the same injury. But because of what happened to Michael Watson, that effectively saved my life because they obviously medical procedures, they learnt, you know, they learnt from what happened to Michael Watson. They sedated me in the ring, put me into a coma. I had to go through that process of learning to walk again, talk again, and rebuild my life in many ways. So I know the dangers of this sport. I know how dangerous it can be. So I totally understand your argument.
Yeah, that's the only thing I worry about. Boxing's it's like a kind of blood sport thing for you. When you were young, you all grow up, you have your wee fights and everything else, and you have fun about it. And my whole point is, you have fought for years, you guys, and the medical thing, to be able to keep boxing, for a YouTuber to take it all away from you because he's a crazy guy. As you say, the kahunas on him. He's a very brave man getting in that ring with him, especially when you saw them the other day and standing next to each other. Joshua just looks as if he could hit him like a nail into the ground. And that's what my point is.
Yeah,
boxing could be finished. Boxing could be finished for every day if they kills him.
Yeah, sure. I totally get your point. And Dave asked that question, didn't he? You know, how is it only in this sport? And you go, well, I think only in this sport because of the highs that it brings you, because it's the ultimate gladiatorial sport. So for us males, you go like, this is the ultimate thing you can do to get up and fight. So he's taking on his biggest challenge. You go, this kid is obviously an adrenaline junkie and he wants to take himself to that next level every single time. And you go, he's gone from fighting Gervonta Davis, who's smaller than me, to fighting one of the biggest heavyweights of this modern era. It's like, it's bizarre, but I get it. I get the adrenaline rush. I totally understand it. Looking for that new high. That's where Jake Paul's at. But, you know, reality will kick in when that first bell rings. And I think he'll realise, you know, how tough this is going to be.
But yeah, absolutely. We're going to hear from Sean now as a Palace fan. I've got some more to say to you about that, Spencer. But we want to hear from Sean. Sean, what's your point?
Hi there. How you doing?
You're okay, good, thanks, mate. Good.
Yeah, what Spencer said, exactly nail on the head. Adrenaline junkie, why he's got into this is he used to be on the Disney Channel. It's a joke, but it's been allowed to happen. Now, the thing is, this is prize fighting we're talking about. So it's almost, you know, going back to Barnabas days of freak shows, this is what's going on. But it's happening. It's happening. Money talks. It's happening. But the only thing I really, and again, I'm from an amateur pedigree, so I'm sure the same as Spencer back in the day, is the fact that let their money flood down. You know what I mean? This is going to happen. This fight is going to happen. But wouldn't it be lovely? Like the amateurs, like the ABAs hasn't been screened for, God knows me, 20 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a
How
good
about
point.
let this, do you know, let this circus show happen. Good luck to them. It's not going to happen because, you know, we'll have another circus show a year later, whatever it is, and we'll go, oh, this can't happen. It will happen. But how about a little bit of the money flood down so it had the ABA screened?
Yeah, let the circus happen and let it help the grassroots, which Anthony Joshua does, to be fair. Doesn't he?
Absolutely. Anthony Joshua actually donates a lot of money to the amateurs.
Yeah,
I think ABC is the club that I was from. So my uncle, my father trained Anthony Joshua back in the day, got him into it, took him up to winning his gold medal, back in 2012. So I totally understand that. Joshua always supports the club and does a lot for the community as well. And he doesn't boast about that. He does that, off his own back. And I think that, yeah, what you're making a valid point there. I totally understand that the grassroots really does need that support, and with the money that's in boxing today. But by the way, what Jake Paul is doing, he's investing as well because he's brought women's boxing to the forefront. They weren't getting the money. They weren't getting the recognition. MVP have now pushed women's boxing to the forefront. He gives these girls massive opportunities. And I think that he's doing well for boxing as a whole as well. So I think he's investing in that. He wants to do that as well. But you're right. There needs to be more support for the amateurs coming through because that is the backbone of British boxing. That is the grassroots.
Sean, I'm interested that you straight away went for Barnum and Bailey for the circus aspect. So is this sport or is it circus?
No, it's circus. It's complete circus. It's absolute complete. If this was sports, there would be, like, literally, you could go around any amateur gym in the country, and I'm telling you now, you'll get a better candidate than Jake Paul to fight Anthony Joshua.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
It's an opinion shared by many, Sean. Sorry to interrupt you, my friend.
No, totally. But what I'm saying is, maybe I'm raising a bit of and Spencer, do you know what? I'd love you to take us on board. Why aren't the ABAs on TV? Why aren't the ABAs on TV?
Do you know
Please,
what?
This needs to be a massive, massive thing. I think it's a tragedy that the ABAs aren't on TV.
It's a valid point, mate. When I won the ABAs back in 1994, that was on TV, terrestrial TV. I think it was on BBC One. It was on BBC One. Yeah, so we was getting huge coverage back then. And unfortunately it has fallen away. And you're making valid points because boxing has grown as a sport, isn't it? Where it used to be a little bit of a niche market, boxing, it's now, people love it. They're filling stadiums all the time. It's become an event. It's not just a boxing show now. Gone are the days with a guy smoking a fag in the corner at the York Hall. Now we're going to stadiums. We were at Tottenham Hotspur last week. You're all over the place. Wembley Stadium, stadiums all over the world. So boxing is growing, and we do need to get more eyeballs back onto the amateur game for sure. Sean, I agree with that.
Sean, thanks for your call. And I'm going to make you a promise. I have no sway, none whatsoever, but I think we should take a look at doing an amateur hour. Not amateur hour in the sense of me and Spence, but actually talking about amateur boxing. It's amateur hour every hour when we're on air. But good idea that, Sean, and we'll talk about things like that. So thanks for your call. It's very much appreciated. We've got Liam, who's a Spurs fan, on the line. Liam, we'll come to you in a moment if that's okay, my friend, because we're going to have to take another short break. We've got Craig Richards on his way as well. I still want to know from Spencer and from others, the answer to that question, though, why boxing? Why is this fella who wants, what do people keep saying? Adrenaline junkie. He wants the thrill. He wants the buzz. Wouldn't he get that by running against a 100-metre champion in the Olympic Stadium? Wouldn't he get that swimming against the world champion? Wouldn't he get that diving against the world champion, against Tom Daley? He would, but it's boxing. It's always boxing, isn't it, that these fellas seem to target. Anyway, more of that to come. You are listening to Fight Night here on TalkSport. Craig Richards to come, but this is Fight Night and it's getting feisty. got to say, sensational choice of music to bring us back here on Fight Night on TalkSport. Craig Richards will be here shortly. I'll tell you what, he is getting as big a build-up as Prince Naseem Hamed against Kevin Kelly. That ring walk was 9 minutes long, wasn't it? Something like that. But anyway, we're talking about AJ against Jake Paul, the rights and wrongs, your opinion. And Paul, Arsenal fan, on the line. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, hiya, gents. Just quickly, Gerald McClellan, Spencer himself, my own countryman, Johnny Owen. We've woken up to some terrible accidents in the ring against boxers who are professionals at the same weights. What does this tell us about this fight? To be honest with you, I'm really disappointed that given Joshua's wealth is estimated at, say, £200 million, why didn't he make a stand and say, you know what, I'm not doing this. I could. It's easy money. But on the basis of it being a competitive fight, I don't think this is right for the boxing. I don't think it's right for my reputation. And I don't think it's right for his career because there is no win in it for Joshua. I cannot understand why he's not taking almost a professional integrity stance and say, this is not for me, unless there's some underlying conditions which he's agreed to, which he thinks probably protects Jake Paul in his fight. Just wondering what your views would be.
Yeah, it's a very, very interesting point, Paul. Am I just guessing, without wanting to put words in your mouth, before we go any further, you see it the same way as everyone, that this is only going one way and it's not going to be good for Jake Paul?
Well, sorry, I got some playback then.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted your view on... Yeah, go on, carry on, go on.
I agree. I see it one way if it's a legitimate fight. In reality, this is no difference to Joshua looking outside the hall of any big fight, seeing a big guy in who's got money and saying, I'll fight you. Now, it can't just be that because you've got the ability to generate money, you can get yourself in a ring against what is still an elite world-level fighter. And I think I'm disappointed that Joshua's integrity has not allowed him to say, this is not for me. It doesn't bring me or doesn't put me or my profession in the right light. I would have preferred him to say, no, this can't happen.
Paul, thanks for your call. Spencer, it's a very interesting point.
Yeah.
In the crazy's one word, modern world of boxing, is there room for anyone to make that kind of moral stance that Paul very eloquently puts that Anthony Joshua could have made?
Yeah, listen, I totally understand where Paul's coming from, but this is prize fighting, and we must remember money is the ruler here. And you go, Anthony Joshua was going to be boxing tonight, Paul, by the way, in an 8-rounder against, ironically, someone that is actually in Jake Paul's camp who's now injured. And he would have been getting a fraction of the money that he's going to get now. And for Anthony Joshua, he's going, look, I'm a prize fighter. I want to get back to the top of my game. I know what the roadmap is for me next year. I'm fighting in February and then again in September, possibly against Tyson Fury. Will there be a world title on the line? Who knows? You know, is one in February. Could it be, could he be boxing someone like Fabio Wardley if he comes through this one? Do you understand where Joshua is going with that? But for Anthony Joshua, it's all about sitting in the dressing room, getting those hands wrapped, smelling the arena, feeling the occasion again, getting back to winning ways. And if someone was going to say to you, it doesn't matter how much money you got in the bank, if someone says to you, right, you can go down this route and have an 8-rounder against this journeyman type guy where you're going to get the victory, but you're going to get $1 million. Or, by the way, you could go through this show with Jake Paul and it'll be the biggest viewed boxing match in history, and you're going to get paid 70 million quid. And by the way, it might be an easier fight than the original one you're going to have. Anyone's going to do it, aren't they? It doesn't matter how much money you got.
But that's his point. He's saying not everyone's going to do it.
No, but I believe that they would, because I think money is a ruler.
So if he fights Fabio Wardley and Tyson Fury next year, and he's already multi-millionaire.
I totally get that. But it's just like, it's like any normal person would go, you're taking that moral stance. I understand that. I get it.
Oh, I'm not taking it. I'm saying, is there space for it? Are you saying no?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm saying
no, there isn't space for that.
I think that the guys are always going to go where the money is.
Okay.
It doesn't matter how much money they've got. So I understand the moral stance that could be taken, but we live in that world where you go, that's the opportunity. Anthony Joshua said, thanks for that opportunity, and I'll take it. So I understand that.
So the debate for another show is, where's the line then? That's good. Not tonight, because we've got loads of calls.
Or is there a line?
Well,
that's the point.
There isn't a line.
No, absolutely. We're talking about boxing here. It's the Wild West.
No, okay.
You asked that question at the beginning of the show. You said, like, only in boxing this could happen. Yep. It wouldn't happen in a 100 metres race. Only in boxing. What is that? Why is that?
Yeah.
That's the game we're in.
We shrug our shoulders and we move on. Rob, you're on the line. Rob, great. Thanks very much indeed for the call. What have you got to say?
Oh, yeah, thanks a lot for having me on.
That's all right.
The guy who was who just phoned up, it's exactly what I was going to say. And I wonder who's advising Anthony Joshua these days, because I think the decision for him to take this fight, it's a terrible decision, because, it can't just be... this guy's he's probably the richest fighter in this country. You know what I mean? He's got money. So a win over Jake Paul, what does that do for him? This guy is meant to be getting himself back in contention for fighting for the heavyweight championship of the world, or at least a mega fight with Tyson Fury. A win over Jake Paul? How is that preparing him for a fight with Tyson Fury?
But the argument, Rob, sorry to interrupt you, but the argument is that this is just replacing a tune-up anyway. It's not replacing a fight with Fabio Wardley or Tyson Fury or anything like that. It's replacing a fight that would have been a sort of, with respect to the opponent, a nothing fight anyway.
Well, this goes back to what I initially said. Who is advising Anthony Joshua these days? Because he shouldn't be having these little tune-up fights.
Yeah, but surely it's been out for 15 months, though. Yeah, so, fighters, he wouldn't come straight back in and fight Fury.
No, he wouldn't come straight to fight Fury, but Frank Warren's got a world of heavyweights in his stable. If he wants to get in shape for a mega fight with Fury, he could pick any one of those, because Frank Warren's got a world of heavyweights in his stable. He could pick any one of those guys and have a fight with them, and he would be in better condition to fight Fury fighting one of them guys before than fighting Jake Paul. But it seems like the people advising him have said to him, look, mate, you can make 70-odd million for fighting Jake Paul. It's a no-brainer. But why is it a no-brainer? When we go back years ago, when Mike Tyson had a bad day at the office against Buster Douglas, okay, cool. He had one tune-up fight against Henry Tillman, and then he was back in contention fighting proper solid heavyweights. He then fought Alex Stewart, and then he fought the dangerous Razor Ruddock twice before looking to fight Holyfield, and then he unfortunately got sentenced. But this is where boxing has changed now. It's now become about the money, as Spencer Oliver correctly said, and it's not becoming about putting your wits against the best, really. Because if you're fighting the likes of Jake Paul, which we know you're going to win, or you should do, and someone else needs to say to AJ, what happens if you get cut or you get stopped in this fight? Anything can happen. This is still a big guy you're fighting. Where does that leave your career? Who's going to want to fight you then?
Yeah, the what happens if you get cut argument is sorry to cut across you again, Rob. We've got a lot of calls coming in. The cut argument's a really solid one, and we'll talk more about that in a second. Thanks for your call. We're joined on the line as we still wait for the Spider, Craig Richards. James is on the line. James, what have you got to say about AJ against Jake Paul?
Hello.
Hi, you're live on TalkSport on Fight Now. What have you got to say, James?
Excellent. It's a short one, really, for me. I think I'm just listening to everybody talk about all this, really, really seriously, and who's gonna do what, and even the crazy belief that Jake Paul has a chance of beating AJ. And I'm just thinking, I'm sitting here giggling. I've been watching boxing most of my adolescent life. I'm not a boxer. But I've been watching it most of my adolescent life. I used to go out and catch the David Hay bouts, with my dad, and we used to go and, wait up and watch it. I think I even saw the Tyson Lennox Lewis when I was a little child, come down at 3 a.m. because it was in America somewhere. This cannot be real. This is a setup. And I just think, how do people not see that? This is and I hope I can say that. I'm allowed to say that.
You can say what you want, mate, but I think that
awesome. Yeah,
from awesome. Anthony Joshua's point of view, just to jump in before you finish that off, from Anthony Joshua's point of view, it can't be a setup, because if it's a setup, he couldn't go into a fight that is a setup. Or if Jake Paul gets into round 2, 3, 4, it's a lose, a massive lose for Joshua, and I think he's putting his career at stake if it's a setup, because he won't be able to continue boxing off that. It's a legitimate 8 3-minute round fight at heavyweight. Are you
real? Are you serious?
I'm being deadly serious, mate. Yeah. And this is the concern for Jake Paul and his health when you're talking about, levels to the game and all that. You go, but Anthony Joshua is in fight mode. He wants to get back to becoming a 3-time world heavyweight champion. And obviously Jake Paul is standing in his way at the beginning of this journey back.
I'm not being funny, guys. I'm not being funny. I mean, Tyson Fury's dad, said something very funny and explicit, and I won't repeat it. You can
when Spencer said you can say what you want, let's stop short of that. Carry on, James.
And I just laughed, and I absolutely laughed out loud reading it the other night because I thought that's absolutely spot on. The way I see it is, guys, and I'm not being funny, I'm not a boxing expert, not a boxer myself, but I've watched it enough over the years. I mean, I think Alexander Usyk I think he's the Don. I think he's the kind of guy that you're looking at. I think he's a worthy champion. Jake Paul is, and I'm not with no disrespect, there is no competition there in my eyes. There is absolutely no competition. I honestly think AJ could beat him with one leg. I mean, that's the kind of thing I'm looking at, and I'm just kind of laughing at people to the point where I've called up tonight. It's really funny because I think, I won't be paying to watch it. I don't know if it's free on Netflix or whatever. I mean, I've been over the last few years. I've been very selective over the bouts that I've paid money to watch. Do you know what I mean? And,
yeah, absolutely, James.
And I've been very disappointed in some of the ones over the last couple of years, going 1 or 2 rounds or not going as expected. But
Yep. James, thanks for your call. I love the disbelief in James's voice. It just about sums up how we all feel. We're going to hear from Craig Richards in a few moments. But just one very quick thing to say, because some of the younger people I know, including our producer, big YouTube fans, They love the idea, Jake Paul fighting Anthony Joshua. It's almost like this virtual reality thing. But I'm telling you straight, it's real. It's professional boxing. He's got no chance against Anthony Joshua. He's a top 10 heavyweight in the world. Top fighter. Bigger than him. Stronger than him. Better than him. Times his shots well. If it's for real, and trust me, folks, it is, Jake Paul has no chance whatsoever. All we should be worried about is what might happen to him. It's true. This is Fight Night. Very seriously on TalkSport. Craig Richards is coming next.
Let's be honest, we've all found ourselves raging at a referee's decision at some stage. This feel familiar?
That is an absolutely shocking decision.
They've got a case in that it was a bad decision.
It's such a poor decision.
Yeah, I think he's just made a bad decision in that instance.
But what does it take to get to the very top of football refereeing? Every referee starts with their county FA. It's a simple training course and you can take it as soon as you hit your 14th birthday. Once you've done that, you have to go through at least 11 hours of face-to-face training. You'll then graduate as a Level 7 official, which means you can take charge of county-level games. But hold your horses, there's still a long way to go to get to the Premier League. Your next step is to spend a year each at Levels 6, 5 and 4. This covers the top of the amateur game. Only at Level 3 do you start doing Northern Counties or Isthmian League level games, for example. If you've done this all quickly, you can reach Level 2 and ref your first National League match after, I don't know, 6 years? After getting enough experience at that level, you can apply to be a referee in the EFL. There's an interview, people watching you do games, and then, if the EFL are happy, you'll be granted a Level 1 licence to ref in games in League 2 and above. Now, they don't just say on you go to the Premier League, you have to work your way up through the divisions. Only after years of hard work and refereeing on cold Tuesday nights in Stoke can you be considered to do matches in some of Europe's very best stadiums. Now, who was the youngest to reach the very top? It was actually Michael Oliver. He refed his first Premier League match in 2010 at the tender age of just 25. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, crack on. It'll only take you roughly a decade, thousands of hours of work and an incredibly thick skin. In total, there are 37,000 registered referees across England, but the PGMOL has only deemed 21 good enough for the top flight. That means there's not even a 1 in 1,000 chance you'll even make it in. Obviously, referees can make mistakes, but when you think about it, having a go at them is kind of like slating a brain surgeon.
This is Fight Night here on TalkSport. I am delighted to say that we're joined in the studio by a man at the start of his career described by Tony Sims as a cross between Floyd Mayweather and Tommy Hearns because of the shoulder roll and the right hand. I'm right, aren't I? Craig Richards is with us. Always remember that line. It's great to have you with us. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, we want to ask you about Benvidez and Yard because we're going to be discussing that. But more pertinently for you, December the 20th, South London Derby taking place in Accra in Ghana. So talk to us a bit more about this, Craig.
Oh, that's going to be tremendous. You know, it's such a great occasion. It's Matchroom's first show ever in Ghana. I don't think Matchroom's ever been to Africa since 1994, since I think Eubank's boxed out there. So it's their first big one of this generation. To get to headline it, stadium, 17,000 in a South London derby, you can't really ask for much more.
I should say South London derby against Dan Aziz, by the way, of course. And have you already pictured the atmosphere in your head? I know you fighters like to picture things, all great sports people do. Have you already thought what it's going to be like on that walk?
Yeah, I think for me, I always picture I just exaggerate the night. So when I get there, it's never as bad as you picture it or as good as you picture it. You just take it in one step at a time, focus on, first of all, step by step. So first of all, I focus on getting the preparation right, training, getting all that sorted. And when I get to fight week, we'll go to the next stage of thinking about all of that.
Do you know what? I'd done the show out there in June, actually. They had a show out there in June.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. Ghana's got a special place in my heart. I actually turned pro over in Ghana. That was part of the process, So after I come out of the Commonwealth Games, I was taken to Ghana because there was a kid called Alfred Cote who was a world bantamweight champion at the time. I was taken to Ghana because I was part of that team and they were trying to get me to turn professional. So it took me over there, stayed at Azuma Nelson's house, went to see all these people. Long story short, Alfred Cote was an unbelievable fighter, was prepared to fight Nazim Hamid at one point, but lost his world title and it was never quite the same again. Went to America and unfortunately things didn't turn out his way. And at 52, he had a seizure and passed away. So I went out there thinking I was going out there to commentate on the show in Ghana.
Yeah.
Went out there. I met up with Azuma Nelson, amazing, and all the old people like Yoffie, who was the promoter at the time. He was out there, the agent, and met up with him. And I met Alfred Coates' son, who looked identical to him. So I was piecing all these pieces together and putting a closure on my career without me even knowing it. But the show itself, Craig, and where I was going with this is the show itself was absolutely insane. I can't remember being in an atmosphere like I had out there in Ghana. They loved their boxing, and it was in a 2,000-seat arena, outdoor. It was pelting down with rain with no cover on the ring. There was that much water in the bottom of the ring. And this is a true story, right? They just carried the show going. And the show carried on going. There was two guys called, Abdullah was boxing a guy called, I forget what his name was now. Let's just say it was Mason or something like that. It was a cruiserweight fight. And a guy got hit with an uppercut. And it was teeming down with rain. And he was out. And he went, and you saw the splash of water come up. And I think that woke him up, and he got up, and he got to the final bell. And there was about 11,000 people in this 2,000-seater. It was insane, but what a place, man. Amazing. Wow. If you have anything like that, mate, it's going to be something really special. And what a fight there with Dan Aziz.
Yeah, you know, like Dan would like to bring it. You know, we're both always fit. We're both always strong. So we know it's an exciting fight, good clash of styles. I don't think you'll be in for a boring fight with us two. I'm preparing very hard. I'm picturing he's going to be preparing very hard. And we know the carrot at the end, you know, the winner, that's going to go on to big things for 2026. So, you know, it's a lot of incentive in it.
You talk about that carrot, but where does the loser go? Because you're both, it's fair to say, at this stage of your career, it's a must-win fight for both of you, really, isn't it? Because you've both competed at a certain level where you go, a loss is going to be very difficult to rebuild and get back up there again at this stage of your career. So what I'm saying is, in terms of winning at this stage of your career, it is really a must-win.
The thing is, for me, I feel it's a must-win fight. But when people always say, oh, this is must-win, that's must-win. But, for example, I beat Dan Aziz December the 20th, and then you heard on February, Dan Aziz is boxing someone like Whitaker. You're not going to be like, how? You're going to be like, oh, this now makes sense. So how is it a must-win? There's other options for him to go. Of course, the next stage, you're not going to get on for a world title shot off the back of a loss of it. It will be a setback. So it must win if you want to push on to the world honours. But I don't think for his career it's like, right, that's it for you.
No, that's the point I was making. I meant at that level. Like, so, yeah, of course your career can continue. Like Derek Chisora is a prime example of that.
Yeah.
Derek Chisora's lost 13 fights and he's still earning a hell of a lot of money and boxing at a good level. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, at this stage of both of your careers, it's a must-win to kick on and achieve those world honours like you know that you're craving for.
But remember, my last press conference, what was the same narrative out of me and Patrick McCormack?
Yeah.
The winner to push on for a world honours is a must-win fight. Yeah. We hear this multiple times. Jake Bull, must-win for your career. Shakan Peters for the British, must-win for my career. I've been here multiple times. So I've heard this so many times, but as I say, we've had these clashes and I've watched opponents that I've beat in the must-win fights go on to have other fights and rebuild themselves. Prime example, someone like Reece Bellotti. At one point, everyone was like, and then he went on to small shows, rebuilt himself, Southern area, British, Commonwealth, and went back into big fights. So what I say all that to say, you don't really put the pressure on yourself with that. You put the pressure on yourself to say, I must win because I've got aspiration in this sport, and to get to my aspirations, I need to win this to push on.
That's the world-weary voice, by the way, of a man who's been around boxing for a long time in terms of that description. I just want to ask you, Craig, do you feel undervalued? I mean, given the performances you put in, you know which one I'm going to talk about, right? Yeah. Extraordinary performance against Dimitri Bivol, who others haven't got anywhere near. Do you feel that you get the credit you deserve?
Do you know what it is? I feel like because when you box 50-50 fights so often, not every single time you're going to look tremendous because you're fighting the guys who want it as much as you want. As I say, I've been in a lot of crossroad must-win fights. So the guys I'm fighting, it's their big opportunity. And I've been on the matchroom stage for a while. A lot of guys who's unbeaten and they get their opportunity to fight me on matchroom stage. This is their unification. So they turn up. So sometimes you get the win and you're not looking as good. Other fighters may be fighting guys who are not so great or journeymen and knocking them out, and everyone's like, he's the next big thing, because, you know, casuals don't really know too much about boxing, the politics of how good the opponents are, etc. So to the casuals, I may not get the credit. Like, people say, like, people wouldn't put me down in light heavyweight as one of the biggest punchers, but if you look at all the ones I've not won, of people slipped and got me on points, I've knocked them out. Do you get what I'm saying? So since I come out to light heavyweight, I've knocked out people who's never even hit the floor, never even had losses and stuff. But then people won't give me the credit, say, you know what, he's a big puncher. They won't say that because that's not a narrative that's been pushed. So it's undervaluing certain of my assets. But at the same time, I can be to blame for that, because sometimes in fights, I've gone into fights when there's nothing on the line and I'm just like, I'm just going to go and do my job. And I thought he doesn't deserve 100% of me. I've gone into the ring just to tick the register.
Chad Sugden.
I've gone in there. I was like, they said he's not good enough for the British when I was mandatory. Then I couldn't defend my WBA against him. They're like, you're just going to get 8 round of tick-overs. So I'm like, let me just go in there, do my job and go home.
It's the motivation side of it, that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you say, you get yourself up for certain fights. Like, look, you boxed Dimitri Bivol.
Yeah.
You went in there, and I was working that night as well. And you're there, and you're looking at it. And Bivol at the time was he still is, but he was considered one of the best pound-for-pound fighters in the world, not just at light heavyweight.
In period.
And I'm going, and we go back a long way, and I'm going, I don't believe this. It's a tough night for Craig Richards. And then I find myself in round 10 going, there's nothing in this.
Yeah.
It's a winnable fight.
Yeah.
And I think that I wanted to ask you, what was going through your mind at that point of the fight? Because after 10 rounds, I'm going, this is now a 2-round fight. Craig Richards can pull off one of the biggest upsets in British boxing history.
That's what I was getting told. When I was going into the 10th, I got told, like, look, you're down, you need to win 2 of the last 3. I said, what? I got into the last 3. I said, well, I'll just win all 3 then, because I'll secure the win. So I went out, won all 3 rounds, thought, that must be enough, and I was still half round and 1 round short. What kicked me is I've gone 12 rounds to Dimitri Bivol and felt like I could still do another 4 rounds.
Sure.
And that's what was disappointing for me, because I said to myself, you've come up short and you've not given 100%. You've got more to give and more to display. And I think since the fight, I've gone around the houses of trying to work out what piece I was missing so next time I get there. And sometimes I took away some of my best assets in certain fights and I've come back full circle. And also I've done a lot of reflecting in the sense of no matter who you're boxing now, you got to go in there and show up every single time, because this is where the critics will come in. You've got to show 100. Don't matter if it's for nothing. Go in and show your ability. And I think, like, when I came up short, when I obviously left the gym a year or so ago, and I reflected on that, I said, nah, no more playing around, show up every time. So when I got the Patrick McCormack fight, although it was on 6 weeks notice and I knew it was in his backyard, I was excited because I said, I'm going to go and show everyone now my levels, because he was former IBO world champion. So going out to beat him, which I did in his home yard, won every round and stopped him, I was like, right, I've got to build off this and show this every fight now.
And you get the chance to do that. Will you stay with us? You got time to stay with us?
Yeah,
for
of course
a bit more
I've got
of a chat? Benvidez, 1 or 2 other things that we want to discuss with you.
I've
Maybe
cleared my schedule for you.
Very kind. The Spider's going to stay with us. You're listening to Fight Night here on TalkSport. shots go again.
A good, spiteful finish from Craig Richards. That's what we want to see from him.
Chopping right hand from Richards. That was the shot. Is Richards' dream about to come true? Caught in the spider's web.
Greg Spider Richards.
I've got to say, when you come out with a line as naff as caught in the spider's web live on terrestrial television, you don't then expect however many years later to be sitting opposite the spider. I hope you remember that. It was a great night, wasn't it?
Every time you watch that back, that line's the one that pops in your memory. I like it.
That was. We were just talking about that, weren't we? A lot of people fancied you. That was Shaq and Pitters, by the way, for the British title, and it was a weird night, wasn't it? In that, do you remember in the sort of production studio in the Midlands, wasn't it? Fly by night, it was called.
And it was lockdowns and all.
That's right. Yeah.
But what was funny, because it was his promotion company, and a lot of the fighters and his team was in there. It's like he had a crowd, so anytime he swung anything, they're shouting. And then obviously I'm just battling with the crowd, but I didn't let it distract me.
Yeah, and I always remember about that night that how many people secretly fancied you to win that. You were the outsider with the bookies that night, but also you had such a perfect game plan that night, and you executed it to absolute perfection. I always remember Richie Woodall saying to me, talking about Pitters coming forward in straight lines and so on and so forth, and you've got to stay off the centre and you've got to make him, well, you know exactly what your game plan was. You won't go through it, but you executed it to perfection, and you were so patient as well. I remember that. You waited, didn't you? And you caught him in the end, you hurt him, and then that was it.
I knew how he liked to box. I just nullified all the things that he liked and gave him everything he didn't like, and I was just patient. I watched these fights and I knew I'd catch him down the stretch. My plan was always to take him out between 8 to 12. So obviously I know I dropped him early, but that was just, I caught him and I dropped him early, but I always knew. And it was funny because as I said to Peter in going into the 9th, I said, I'm going to take him out in the 10th. He said, no, he's ready now. Take him out in the 9th. And I was like, you sure? Then it was like, yeah. Then I took him out. So I don't think he was ready, but I was laughing.
Brilliant. But how difficult is that, just out of interest? Because I'm always interested in these lines that we throw in as commentators and pundits and so on about not rushing your work. If you hurt somebody, not getting carried away, not jumping in, keeping your distance, picking the right shot. It's all very easy to say, but how hard is that to do in the moment? Because you did hurt him early, just to use that one night as an example. How hard is that to do, to just be calm, deep breaths and do the right thing?
It's all about experience, because I remember early in my career, I didn't have a big amateur pedigree, so when I got the opportunity to go onto Matchroom because there was someone who dropped on the show for my debut, and it was like, I know everyone was looking at me. I took it short, and I was like, I went out there and I got the knockout first round, 47 seconds. I getting put back on Matchroom. And then obviously I got the step-up fight on my 4th fight, got a good knockout on the first round. And then it was like, right, let's put him on a big show. And I was on the Golovkin-Kell Brook card. And I hurt the guy, I think, in the first or the second. And because of the inexperience, I was till I had like nothing left. And I was like, that was clumsy. I was like, what are you doing? You should have took your time. So from them fights early in my career, I kind of learned to be patient. So when I got to the bigger stages, and that's what's good about developing properly as a pro, like taking the right steps, winning the Southern area, British, etc., because you learn little things from each fight not to do as you step up. If that makes sense. And it's kind of like when as we were just talking about, won the British, my next stage, I went for the world title, Dimitri Bivol, and there's certain shots that I would get away with domestically, like the one I buzzed Shaq with, I stabbed downstairs, hooked around with the right hand. As I went to Bivol, he just rolled out and threw about 5 shots. And I've seen people keep putting that clip on Instagram of him trying to counter me. And I realized you can't throw silly shots or make any mistakes at that world level, but you learn it as you kind of go through. And I feel like that's what I was saying earlier. I've come around full circle now to have enough experience to be a wholesome fighter.
But some fighters, they can't control those emotions. They don't learn that discipline. They're great fighters, but I think that's the ones that excel and the ones that, that move on to those other levels. Like you've done, like you're saying there, you're developing, going through the stages like that, but you're picking things up all the time. Emotions play a big part in a boxer's fight.
Emotions is the biggest thing.
Yeah, and that's why you're hard to beat.
Yeah.
Because you control your emotions. You get hit with a shot. People get emotional. They go for it. They lose the game plan. You don't do that. You get hit with a shot. Boom. All right, it's gone. It's history.
Yeah.
And that's how you move on.
I think that's what makes a good fighter a good fighter. Someone very disciplined. I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes when I'm outside the gym in my camps, I can get ratty because you're so tired. So apologies to anyone that I've acted a little bit out of character or thingy in this time of in camps. But all jokes aside and stuff, in that ring, you got to understand, like, put your ego aside, everything aside, stay emotionally balanced, stick to the game plan. And the perfect example to move on to it, if you watch Conor, when he boxed Eubanks the first time to the second time, he went out very emotionally, loading up, made mistakes, got a little bit tired on the later rounds. Second fight, he had his emotions in check. He boxed, stuck to the game plan, and ended up being a lot better the second fight because he kept his emotions in check. And that's the difference sometimes between winning and losing.
So, talking of that, you left Shane McGuigan, back with Tony Sims, of course. What's that camp feeling like at the moment? There must be a good buzz around the gym.
It's a really good buzz. You know, we sit there and the days are so hard. Like, Tony's old school. He's relentless with the training. Like, don't try and come in and talk about your legs sore or something. Like, he'll just look at you. So, being there when you're working hard with these boys and you're seeing them going out, and then you're seeing the hard work paying off. You've seen him, he's been in the hard camp. He goes and wins. Jimmy won 2 titles. George Liddard, he big underdog. Everyone said, nah, it's too soon for him. He went out, caused the upset. Good camp. I saw him working so hard in camp. It paid off. Conor went in the camp. It paid off. And I think Fisher's next and then me, but it puts a pressure on you because it's only you to blame because everyone else's formula's working.
But success breeds success, and the matchroom, you know, they're going through that stage again now, aren't they? You know, where you had your time and then, you know, it sort of fell off the wagon a little bit. You know, a few fighters were losing, etc., etc. Now you're back on a high again, and you're right. Like, I think it's always important when you've got an old school trainer like Tony Sims, and he's an old school trainer, and he'll work you like a dog, but there's a bit of knowledge that goes behind it.
Knowledge. He's not one of them guys who just 100 press ups, like, you know, there's some coaches, there's no method to their madness. They're just telling you just to work hard, and it's just not realistic. He has a system. Like, he knows when to work you, when to peak you, when to rest you, and he's not a trainer. Like, he's in there from early morning to late nights, but he ain't one of them trainers that he's in the gym, but he's upstairs drinking tea and shouting, guys, keep working hard and hitting the bag. He's watching you, everything you're doing. Like, even when you're shadow boxing in the mirror, no, you threw that shot wrong, mate. You're like, he's over you, like, shadow, pads, the bags. He's on everything you're doing.
So he works like one-on-one with fighters. You know, like some gyms you go in and you got one guy on the bag, the other guy's shadow boxing in the ring, the other guy's doing his groundwork. It's
not no keep fitters clamp. It literally gives you that one-to-one time, and that's why he doesn't take on loads of fighters, because he likes to give you your time slot. The only thing we'll do together is we do the morning runs and stuff, which makes it competitive. And he's got a log of my times from 7 years ago. He knows your times of every run of where, if you're slacking or not. So, and he wants to see you improving. He doesn't give you an option to get better. He won't, like, you'll run, say you run a 400 meter and you're 1 or 2 seconds late, but mate, you've lost 2 seconds. Like, pick you up on the next one. You're like, I'm dying here.
We've only got a couple more minutes. We'd have 7 minutes, but Spencer told that story about the lasted 5 minutes.
That one go. Clearly wasn't interested in that, Dave.
No, it's brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. I just felt like I was hosting the show with Craig interviewing you. But anyway, just map out. Spencer knows I'm kidding. 2026.
Yeah.
Let's say you beat Dan Aziz.
Yeah.
December the 20th in Ghana. Map out 2026 as you see it for me. Final run at a big one. Run at the title.
I need that world title shot, and it ain't a final run because I'm going to win that world title.
I knew you were going to pick me up on final.
I'm looking at the other belts. I'm here to now show how good Craig Richards can be. That's what I'm.
Tell us your roadmap. Like, what is the roadmap to that world title, and who's got their target on their back?
Anyone wants to win December the 20th who's got a world title. You know, you look at my career from Southern area, I don't shy away from fights. You remember, like, my first title, I was 6 fights in when I boxed someone 12-0, 6 knockouts, was my first Southern area title fight. My British title fight, 14-0. The other title, 13-1. I've won 22-2. I'm Dimitri Bivol after winning the British, pound for pound number 5 in the world. You can clearly see the characters doesn't matter to me. It's the opportunity. So if the belt's there's an opportunity for it, I'm in.
How many fights do you see that being before you get that world title shot? Realistically,
you can never say, because you know.
Are you in any of the rankings at the moment?
Yeah, I'm in the WBC rankings, and obviously you know how these things go. You win a big win against Dan Aziz, you'll be pushed right up in all the rankings, and things just unfold in weird ways. When I was boxing Shakan, for example, I wasn't looking at no world titles, no European, no nothing. People didn't think I was going to win the British. I won the British, and my next fight was the WBA world title. So you can never, like, put yourself in a position to say this is the roadmap, because things change all the time. People pull out, injuries happen, fights don't get made. Yard Benvidez, no, everyone thought it was Callum Smith Benvidez. That didn't fall through. Next minute, Yard's got a world title shot. So I'm just open to wherever there's going to be a world title shot after December the 20th, put me in.
Secrets, stay ready, my friend.
I'm stay ready. I'm in the gym 24/7.
Always ready. We could talk to you all night. Can I just say as well, Spence, after an hour of AJ Jake Paul, to talk with a proper fighter who's on a proper journey about boxing. Thank you so much for coming in and restoring sanity. But joking aside, great to see you. Fantastic. And we wish you, of course, nothing but good things, not just in December, but next year. And it will be a great day when you do it. And I'm pretty sure you're going to.
Come on.
One of the most undervalued fighters going, I promise you. Craig Richards, fantastic to have you in each
Thank you.
Thanks so much and good luck.
Me.
You're listening to Fight Night. Wasn't that great? We got Lee Wood coming up, Troy Williamson too. So do stay tuned. Fight Night here on TalkSport. Now, thanks to our friends at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas, we're giving you and a friend the chance to win the ultimate trip of a lifetime to Las Vegas. Picture this, you and your best mate flying upper class from London to Vegas, checking into a luxury spa villa for 4 incredible nights at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas, cheering from the stands as the Las Vegas Raiders take on the Kansas City Chiefs, and to top it all off, £5,000 in cash to play with. So clear your calendar from January the 2nd to January the 7th, 2026, because nothing starts a new year like Vegas. Good luck.
21 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text at £2 plus standard network rates. Bill payer's permission required. Or call 03434239761. Calls are charged at standard rate. All entries must be received by the 28th of November at 4 p.m. This is a network promotion. Run across TalkSport, Virgin Radio UK and Talk. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
And to round all of that off, Spencer Oliver has promised not to do his Frank Sinatra routine for you live in Vegas as well, just to make the whole thing more enjoyable. We've had some fun tonight. Wasn't it great? We're going to talk to Lee Wood in a moment. Great to see Craig, wasn't it? What a fighter, by the way.
Yeah, underrated fighter. Really is underrated. And, he does have that quality. He could go on and win a world title for sure. And it's an interesting stage of his career, but what a likeable guy.
Yeah, really likeable. And we hope for good things for him for the rest of the year. Wishing no ill, of course, on Dan Aziz, and good things for him in 2026. And talking of that, looking for good things in 2026, we're joined on the line by Lee Wood. Lee, great to see you. Great to hear from you. Thanks for your time tonight as well. And you've got a big date to come in 2026. So talk us through. Lee Wood, Josh Warrington too.
Yeah, February 21st. It's billed as redemption or whatever, but there's no controversy in that first fight for me. But I would take a lot of joy in going out there and shutting him up for good.
Yeah, that first fight was back in 2023. You won by 7th round KO. He was having his moments in that fight, but you found that equaliser, and that's what you do, isn't it, Lee? You just never lose heart, mate. They put something in the water in Nottingham, because I remember one Cole Frotch used to be like that as well. I mean, you're that guy.
Yeah, you could say that, but from the outside looking at it, it looks that way. It looks like I was pretty much losing on points, and I found a haymaker, but it was far from the truth. I said before the fight, he'll be working hard for his success, and I'll make him pay for that success. And I did. You can't go 12 rounds without giving me opportunities like he was giving me round after round. And I took my chances and secured it. And it was always going to happen in my eyes.
Yeah, it's interesting. We were just talking to Craig Richards, Lee, about timing, about biding your time, about not rushing, about sort of almost trying to predict what's going to happen, get yourself into the right position. And that's what happened that night, isn't it? I remember being ringside for that fight. Warrington was ahead. There's no argument. I'm sure you wouldn't even argue about that on the cards, but you always knew, I think deep down, that wouldn't matter. You always had that shot ready.
It's a 12-round fight, and like I just said, I don't want to give too much away. That's why I've not got into depth on the breakdown of the fight. My team's gone over it. My team went through it meticulously before the fight, and I knew where my moments was going to favour me, and I knew what he does. And I don't want to say too much because now the fight's been made, but after the fight, I can go through it with you guys in great detail and explain to you there was no such thing as luck. There's no such thing as looking at that world level boxing. But yeah, I knew what I had to do. I knew what moments would favour me. I know what he does and what the moments I had to nail, and I nailed it. And it could have been a lot earlier that night. But yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I don't want to talk in riddles, but I expect a better performance from myself on February 21st.
Yeah, no, I understand. Why would you talk through a game plan of a fight that you're going to have again? I completely get that. I want to ask you, though, if you are victorious in February, you fight Warrington again. Would you fight Conlon again? Would we see that again potentially? He said, hopefully.
I don't know. We'll see. For me, I feel like a lot of fighters keep fighting until they lose and then they hang their gloves up, and not many finish on a positive note because, as you know, professional boxing, your value is your last fight. So there's always another fight when you win. I don't want to be that. I want to finish on a high, finish on a positive note. I'm not going to say this is this fight, but it potentially could be.
Yeah, it's very honest of you. Big night in Nottingham, all the glory, big win, big knockout, something like that. And you just say, I'm going to wave goodbye. I don't need another rocky night. I just need that redemptive moment and all the glory, and you could walk away. Not a bad thought, that, Spence.
No, absolutely not. Listen, Lee Wood's got his head screwed on. He's been in some memorable fights. You talk about that Conlon fight, which was fight of the year back in 2022. But what Lee come through in that one, when I talk about, fighters showing character, discipline, and all of that sort of stuff, which is not easy to do, trust me, when things are not going your way. Lee Wood showed it in that fight and showed that he's a world-class fighter to be able to turn it around and knock Connolly out of the ring as well in that 12th round. What a performance that was, Lee, and I think, you proved that you belong at that world level.
Yeah, I think there's probably a handful of people in that arena that thought I was going to win at the end of round one. Probably me being the first one, and then my corner team being 2 and 3. I don't know if there's maybe my friends, the closest friends, but even there, you look at that, it was a heavy knockdown for the weight I'm at. It was a very heavy knockdown. But I never stopped believing in myself. Even when I was picking myself up, I wasn't thinking, am I going to be all right? I was thinking, that's a 10-8 round. I need to pull that back. But yeah, it was a great night in Nottingham back in March 22. And one for the books, that one. Like you said, I've been in a few of them nights, and there's only so many of them you can have without affecting your long-term health. So that's what I'm saying. I'm a bit cautious about that, and like I just said a minute ago, I want to finish on a positive note as well.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because you had talked about calling it a day in 2025 before the Kakachi fight. So are you driven really to want to leave with that positive memory, with that glory night? Is that why it's carrying on into 2026?
Yeah, I always said as well, I want to fight for as long as I can without taking too much ammo. I don't think I've took too much ammo. Even the Kakachi fight, my corner made a good decision, which saved me from taking some big shots. So, like I said, I want to finish on a positive note. There wouldn't be loads more to keep me hanging around after that, all being well, unless someone could say, guarantee me that City Ground fight, which I've been chasing for so long. But, we'll see. I'll take it fight by fight. I'm not going to go into this with the mindset of it's my last one, but like I said, potentially it could be.
That's the dream, though, isn't it? Like you say, what a career you've had, mate. When you look back on your career and some of the fights that you've been in with, the loss to Mauricio Lara, and then the way that you turned that around showed that you've got that adaptability and that star quality to be able to, reverse the, or right the wrongs of that first contest with Lara. When you look back on your career, that would be the icing on the cake, wouldn't it? The City Ground one, because you've achieved pretty much everything else.
Yeah, I did an interview before winning the British title, naming them 3 things, to win a British title was my minimum in the sport, and I wouldn't have walked away without that. And then to box one, hopefully win a world title, and to headline, be the first person to headline at the City Ground. They was my 3 things, and they was pretty dreamy things looking back then. When I mentioned them 3 things, probably people have thought there's no way I'm going to do one of them. But I've done 2 of the 3, there's only one left. But yeah, look, if someone had said to me 5-6 years ago I'd be where I am, I'd have snatched it, and I wouldn't have been able to believe what they were saying. And I owe it pretty much all to Ben Davison and the team down there and Lee Wiley, because they believed in me, and I put the work in, and they helped me achieve more than ever was imaginable.
So, Lee, this is Fight Night on TalkSport, but I hope you allow me to switch sports momentarily. I think you know where I'm going with this. Talk me through...
Great day today.
Oh, yeah, there's that as well. I wasn't even going to talk about that. I mean, you could talk about that all day long if you want.
We're going to talk about Forest, mate, after beating Liverpool 3-0.
There you go. No, I know what you mean. You can absolutely mention it. What a day. But I think talking about what's going on at Forest would last a long time. But a fabulous day that for Forest, and takes you all the way back to, that European Cup match, doesn't it, all those years ago when we had to meet in the first round and so on and so forth. But I was going to ask you about motocross, because this is the second career, isn't it? But beyond boxing potentially. So talk us through that.
It's just going to be for fun. I was obsessed with motorbikes as a kid. And if I'd have had, my family would have had a few quid back then, I probably would have never boxed. So I'd have got into motocross, and I was really passionate about it. But I didn't have enough money to race. Motorsport in general, any motorsport is expensive. But yeah, so then I fell into boxing, fell in love with boxing, very passionate about it. But now the time, I'm coming towards the end, and I've got a motocross bike, and I'm going to do a bit of racing, amateur racing, and get my teeth stuck into that, and really see how far I can go. And that more just for fun more than anything, because, like I said, I was passionate about it. I enjoy it, the buzz of it, flying through the air, anything dangerous, as my mum says. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
That's what we was talking about when we're talking about adrenaline junkies, and what is kicking Jake Paul on when you go, like, who like, how in his right mind does he think he can beat Anthony Joshua? Well, it must be the ultimate adrenaline buzz for him to get in there and challenge himself at that. And, you know, you've just pretty much said it there. Like, that scares the life out of me, mate. You know, riding bikes or, you know, it fears the life out of me, but it must be the ultimate buzz for you. And that's replacing possibly, you know, your boxing career.
Yeah, that's it. I don't look at things like I'm replacing something, but I'm just trying to set goals, and I've got things outside of the motocross and things I want to achieve and things I want to set up, and I've got a lot of things to keep me busy, and that's without my kids as well. So I've got my kids I'm going to spend more time with, and my family and friends, businesses, and motocross will just keep me busy as I like to be.
Mm.
Well, Lee, thanks so much for your time. We wish you luck. It's great to see you looking so relaxed. Great to talk to you as well, and great to hear the plans as well going forward. Thanks for your time, and happy festive season, and we'll look forward to seeing you in February.
See you in February, guys. Yeah,
Cheers,
thank you.
Lee. Brilliant. Great to hear from Lee. We're surrounded by nice guys tonight, aren't we? We've got another one coming up as well, but he's great.
Absolutely. I love Lee Wood. Yeah, I mean, what a career he's had. You know, he's sort of like he said there, I think for him, the ultimate goal would have been, the dream would have been to win a British title. And boy, did he exceed that. He's gone on to win world honours. And do you know what? I'd love him to get that City fight.
Yeah.
You know, because I think that would cement a brilliant career. It really would.
Would Conlon City Ground?
Mate, what a fight that would be. Who wouldn't want to see that after that fight they had back in 2022? If anyone's not seen that, yeah, have a look at that one. Wood Conlon, what an incredible fight and a dramatic finish.
You know
wow.
what? Just going back to that, when you do watch it again, when people watch it, because people forget how heavy the knockdown was early in that first round. People think the story was Conlon outboxed him, was winning comfortably, and then Wood caught him late, and obviously dramatically goes out the ring. But that knockdown,
the knockdown, that would have kept most people down. I don't know how Lee Wood actually recovered from that. It took him a few rounds whilst he was getting a pasting as well. And I don't know how he got through that, but he did get through that. That's what I talk about when I say watering Nottingham, because Cole Froch was that type of guy as well. And I go like, mate, the character you showed to pull yourself through that and then win and then knockout in the 12th round was one of the best knockouts you'll see. Yeah, it was incredible stuff there. Michael Conlon ended up clean out of the ring. What a fight that was.
Yeah, I know it was recent, but we're in danger of going down the Spencer and Dave do all our yesterday. So let's stop that. Coming up next, super middleweight Troy Williamson joins the show. He takes on Callum Simpson, of course, on the 20th of December. This is Fight Night on TalkSport. This is Fight Night here on TalkSport. We're enjoying your company on a Saturday evening, and there is a big night of boxing. We're going to have a look a little bit later on. We're going to get Spencer's view on some huge fights. Bam Rodriguez in action, of course. We got Anthony Yard against Benvidez in that main event. We got the fight that arguably should be the main event, but I'm not going to be too controversial. Brian Norman Jr. against Devin Haney, which is a tremendous fight. I know we both fancy the same fighter in that, but we'll talk about it in a moment. We should say good luck to Sam Noakes tonight, because I think he's on next, isn't he, against the richly talented Abdullah Mason, fighting for the WBO lightweight title. If Sam Noakes pulls that off against Mason in Saudi Arabia, that goes down as one of the great wins by a British fighter, because Mason is exceptional.
He absolutely is. I think he's the next big superstar out of America. He's only 21 years of age, young man, 19 fights, 19 wins, 17 KOs. But as we know, with Noakes, he can whack as well. 15 fights, 13 of those inside the distance. Cracking fight, that one. It really is, yeah. So, yeah, we wish Sam Noakes all the best tonight. Great opportunity to win a world title.
Yeah, Maidstone's finest, and such a great story as well. He's worked so hard to get where he is. And did you read the story about his mum? His mum always checked, for the start of his career, she used to check up on his opponent, got in touch with him on Facebook and checked that they were okay. Well, it's Chris Adaway, the journeyman. He beat him, I think, in his first fight. He's the fella who, when he lands a shot, he punches the air as he lands. It's great. Brilliant fun if you go and watch him at the York Hall. And she found him on Facebook, I think, his mum, and tracked him down and checked he was okay. It's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. But he said she stopped doing it. As it's got more serious, she stopped doing it. But I thought that was lovely. So we wish him an awful lot of luck. Now, Troy Williamson has a huge fight coming up against Callum Simpson. And I still can't quite believe, I'm reading this out, that he's fighting, of course, now at super middleweight, former British super welter champion Troy Williamson. And he's on the line now, and it's great to see Troy in his preparations ahead of the big one. Big thumbs up from him as well. That great win, of course, against Mark Dickinson, and a huge one to come against Callum Simpson. Troy, very good evening to you.
Yes, good evening to you too. Chilling way past my bedtime, but I've stayed up to come on here.
We appreciate your time. I know you're in training as well, but come on, talk us through the fight against Callum Simpson. A sense again, maybe, of all your dreams coming true, if you can get over the line in that one.
Yeah, of course. It's a great fight. A very fan-friendly clash of styles, and one that I'm supremely confident in doing the job on.
Great opportunity for you, this one. Again, Troy, isn't it? You know, you've had a great career so far, mate. You've had your ups, you've had your downs, but that's pretty much what boxing is. But another great opportunity.
Yeah, of course. It's one of my big dreams is to become a two-time British champion, and December the 20th, I've got my chance to do that. So I'm really looking forward to it. And like you said, I've had my ups and my downs, but I feel like I'm coming into my prime now. I'm 34 years old. Coming off a great win in Mark Dickinson. Eventually moved up in weight, which I should have done a long time ago. So I'm feeling good, and I'm in a great place.
How's the training camp been going? So I know that you actually sparred Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. in the training camp for this one, didn't you? That must have been good.
Yeah, I've been getting some great sparring. I've been travelling to Manchester, sparring the big guys now. Started up with some sharp guys like Conor and Chris. I sparred them when they were like 2 weeks out from fighting, so they were really sharp at the time. But yeah, I'm picking it up now and getting 10, 12 rounds in and feeling good, ready.
And now you've gone up, are you feeling comfortable at super middle, Troy? I mean, you were always big at super welter, but are you feeling good now? You're feeling you're at the right weight now for where you are?
Yeah, of course. People are saying I've jumped up 2 weight divisions and believe that I'm small, but if you look back at my amateur career when I was boxing for Team GB, that was at 75 kilograms. So that's pretty much super middleweight, and that was 9 years ago. So I'm 34 years old. I'm not getting any smaller. I'm not getting any younger, and time waits for nobody. I should have moved up a long time ago, really, but I didn't. There's no regrets there because I chose to stay at that weight. It's just the opportunities were coming, so I stuck around that 154 a little bit too long. But now I've moved up, I believe that everyone's going to see the best of me.
Yeah, Troy, do you now look back on it? Like you say, you was competing for so many years at 154 pounds. You're now 168 pounds. And you look back on that. Do you ever look back at it and go, how did I make that weight? How did I stay there for so long?
Yeah, I seen a photo the other day. And it was when I boxed Cheeseman, and I looked like a 13-year-old boy. I just made the weight purely down to hard work and dedication. But I didn't have no life in or out of the boxing ring. I had no social life. I was very unhappy. To be fair, it was very unhealthy. Luckily, I've came unscathed. But yeah, I've eventually moved up now, and I'm ready to show everybody that I'm still a man in the domestic scene.
And there are going to be a lot of eyes on your fight in December. We're not going to talk about it too much, of course, here on TalkSport about why that is, but it will be watched by an awful lot of people, and that makes it an even bigger chance for you, Troy, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, and I'm raring to go. I'm really I'm ready to shut a lot of people up. Like a lot of people have doubted me, still doubting me. I can't wait to prove a lot of doubters wrong on December 20th.
Do you feed off that, Troy? Like, because a lot of fighters do. I used to like it myself. You know, when you go into fights and you're considered the underdog, you go like gives you that extra incentive. And Callum Simpson, you know, he's 18-0, 13 KOs, British, Commonwealth, European. A lot of talk about this kid, but you could rip that script up on the 20th.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to go and do. I see all these negative comments, and all it does is fuel the fire, and it just makes me train extra harder. So I can't wait. 4 weeks to go.
And how hard is it to keep that belief going? And I'm talking ahead of that Dickinson fight. Of course, there was Josh Kelly in Newcastle that night. That was a brilliant performance from him, and as a result, a bad night for you. And then 3 consecutive defeats, and you were written off, really. And then you bounced back with that tremendous performance last time. How hard is it, though, just to keep that self-belief going, to go into that Dickinson fight believing, to give yourself this chance?
I've got a lot of self-belief, and I truly believe that it was all down to the weight issues, that why I picked up them losses. But like I said, there's no regrets because I choose to stay at them weights. But I went into that Mark Dickinson fight supremely confident, knowing exactly what I was going to do. And obviously, like I say, I proved a lot of people wrong. A lot of people doubted me that fight.
You showed a lot of character, Troy, to come back from that because, as Dave was alluding to there, you know, when you lose 3 fights on the bounce and you're at that stage of your career, you go, you know, that you have to go, there's a lot of soul searching that has to go on there. You have to sort of like, you know, reinvent yourself in many ways, but you're asking yourself, you know, a lot of questions as well, but you had to come through that. People don't understand that psychological side of it, and I know how hard that is. Like, that must have been tough for you.
Yeah, it was very tough. To be honest with you, I was that close to walking away from boxing. One off 3 defeats, and it was like, where do I go now? And I got the call to box Mark at super middleweight, and it was just like, I don't know, it was just like, as soon as that name got mentioned, no disrespect to Mark because he's a great fighter and I've shared hundreds around sparring, but as soon as that name got mentioned, I just knew, like, if I was to ever box again, this is the perfect opponent for me. And obviously, you've seen in the performance, obviously, what happened.
Well, it's going to be in Leeds. It's going to be on December the 20th for the British, the Commonwealth, the European super middleweight belts. What a night for Troy Williamson. And thanks for staying up late to talk to us tonight. It's been a real privilege to have you on. We do appreciate your time. I know it's not easy necessarily to break the routine to do it.
Yeah, thank you for getting me on.
Yeah,
thanks,
good luck, Troy.
Yeah, wish you luck. Thumbs up again from Troy Williamson. Great to hear from him. As I said, it's been a night of nice guys, hasn't it? Another one, Troy Williamson.
I was going to say that we're pulling out all the nice guys tonight, aren't we? I mean, yeah, three brilliant guests we've had so far.
I know, absolutely fantastic to hear from all of them, both in great form. Of course, down the line, Troy Williamson and Lee Wood and Craig Richards. Privileged to have him with us in the studio. But you know, I always worry about getting too cliched or getting too emotional about boxing because it means so much to me. But stories like his,
yeah.
I mean, listen, no disrespect to Callum Simpson, no disrespect to Mark Dickinson, you know, but if he could go after what happened against Josh Kelly, and again, on terrestrial TV, I was there. Yeah. That was on Channel 5. And to come back from all of that, from those 3 defeats in a row, if he could pull that off at super middle,
absolutely,
that would be something else.
Absolutely. Ishmael Davis was in there as well. Yeah. And look what he's gone on to achieve now as well. And you just go, you know what? It is. I love them stories. I absolutely love those stories. And that's why I touched on that point, by the way, on how, you know, how emotionally difficult was that for you to overcome those 3 defeats, and you know what you have to go through, the psychological damage that's done there, you know, that he talks about, and he opened up about it a little bit there. I know how tough that is, and that's not an easy thing to overcome. And now he finds himself, you know, boxing for the British, Commonwealth and European title. I love that, because you know it's a tough old sport and he gets an opportunity.
And to be so honest as well about the weight, about how that he was suffering so much at super welter and now at super middle, he feels happy. I know from outside the sport that seems unlikely that you would thrive at 154 and then thrive as well at 168, but that's exactly what's happening. So we wish both him and, of course, we wish Callum Simpson well in December the 20th. That's going to be. You're listening to Fight Night on TalkSport. Up next, what's next for Conor Benn and Chris Eubank Jr. Stay with us for that.
Let's be honest, we've all found ourselves raging at a referee's decision at some stage. This feel familiar?
That is an absolutely shocking decision.
They've got a case in that it was a bad decision.
It's such a poor decision. Yeah, I think he's just made a bad decision in that instance.
But what does it take to get to the very top of football refereeing? Every referee starts with their county FA. It's a simple training course and you can take it as soon as you hit your 14th birthday. Once you've done that, you have to go through at least 11 hours of face-to-face training. You'll then graduate as a Level 7 official, which means you can take charge of county-level games. But hold your horses, there's still a long way to go to get to the Premier League. Your next step is to spend a year each at levels 6, 5 and 4. This covers the top of the amateur game. Only at level 3 do you start doing Northern Counties or Isthmian League level games, for example. If you've done this all quickly, you can reach level 2 and ref your first National League match after, I don't know, 6 years? After getting enough experience at that level, you can apply to be a referee in the EFL. There's an interview, people watching you do games, and then, if the EFL are happy, you'll be granted a level 1 licence to ref in games in League 2 and above. Now, they don't just say on you go to the Premier League, you have to work your way up through the divisions. Only after years of hard work and refereeing on cold Tuesday nights in Stoke can you be considered to do matches in some of Europe's very best stadiums. Now, who was the youngest to reach the very top? It was actually Michael Oliver. He reffed his first Premier League match in 2010 at the tender age of just 25. So if you want to follow in his footsteps, crack on. It'll only take you roughly a decade, thousands of hours of work and an incredibly thick skin. In total, there are 37,000 registered referees across England, but the PGMOL has only deemed 21 good enough for the top flight. That means there's not even a 1 in 1,000 chance you'll even make it in. Obviously, referees can make mistakes, but when you think about it, having a go at them is kind of like slating a brain surgeon.
The boxing gods are certainly smiling on us tonight.
Can the sequel supersede the original? This is Fight Night Live from the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on TalkSport.
It's what we've all been waiting for, and how are the tactics going to unfold?
Oh my days! 50 Cent is accompanying Chris Eubank Jr. to the centre of the ring.
There's a good right hand over the top from Ben, and another one. Oh, good right hand from Ben. Rocks Eubank back onto the ropes, and a nod of acknowledgement from Eubank.
It's quite sad. Eubank looks really disinterested at this point. He looks beaten.
Here comes Ben. Right hand, chopping right hand, and another, and Eubank goes down.
This is the end of the Ben Eubank saga.
So there you go, Conor Benn winning that unanimous decision against Chris Eubank Jr. And it was one of those rare examples of a rematch that left things at 1-1, and no one's really interested in a third fight because it was so definitive, it was so conclusive. Howard Foster scored it 119-107, Marcus McDonald 118-108, and John Latham 116-110, taking into account, of course, those two knockdowns in the final round. John Latham scored it. I like John Latham, by the way, so we're not going to pile on him here, but he scored it 8-4. I wonder where you found 4 rounds for Eubank Jr. It doesn't matter because the right fighter won and so on, but sometimes scorecards, even in this context, baffle you, don't they?
Yeah, they certainly do. I mean, it was a dominant performance, wasn't it, by Conor Benn? He dominated pretty much every round. I think I give him Chris Eubank Jr., that is. I give him round 4 and round 5, and that was it. Otherwise, it was a complete shutout, 10-7 in that last one. I actually had it 118-108, but I think that was as clear as night and day, if I'm honest. So, yeah, that was very unusual scorecard there. Yeah, with the right, you had the right winner, but a lot closer than what I had it anyway.
And obviously more questions than answers. The answers in the ring, of course, but afterwards, the enigmatic comments. What else did you expect from Eubank Jr. about what had been going on? We'll talk about him in a moment, but moving forward with the victor, with Conor Benn, is going to go back down to welterweight, he says. Can he become a world champion at 147, do you think?
Well, that remains to be seen. It's whether he can carry that strength down to 147. I know that he says he can do it. The team say he can do it. He spent most of his career at 147 before things went wrong for him. You know, he was out the ring for a couple of years, wasn't he? Come back at 154, boxed as high as 160 twice. Now he's saying he can get back down to 147. But my concern is that, you know, you lose that strength. He put on muscle mass, and he hasn't been there for 4 years now, 147. You lose the strength, you know, once you come down in weight again. I think historically, remember Roy Jones going up from middleweight up to heavyweight, beating John Ruiz and becoming world heavyweight champion. Had he retired then, he would have gone down to the greatest that ever done it, I think, in my eyes. But he dropped back down in weight, and he was never the same fighter again. And, you know, with Conor Benn, it's going to be tough to get back down there. And it's a tough division as well right now. You know, we've got Brian Norman Jr. boxing tonight. You know, he's boxing Devin Haney tonight in a great fight for the WBO world title. But there's some fantastic fighters down there as well. Mario Barrios is probably the one that Conor would be chasing, the WBC champ. But you got like Lewis Crocker there, the IBF champ. He's calling out for Conor Benn. Another opportunity there. So, look, it's going to be interesting to see where Conor goes, because I think off the back of that performance, we saw massive improvements. And what we did find out about Conor Benn, which we didn't know before, is that he can control his emotions. He can stay disciplined. And that was a massive, you know, that's a massive improvement for him moving forward.
Yeah, you mentioned the names there that he will be targeting. I mean, everyone seems to talk about Lewis Crocker, don't they? I was in Brighton last night. Harlem Eubank will. And there's another potential fight for Conor Benn, if you like. The Eubank name kept going at welter, of course, in this case, and that would be an interesting fight. I think Harlem Eubank's a little bit underrated, so that could be interesting. But Conor Benn fought Lewis Crocker in 6 weeks' time. Who do you have as favourite?
Well, it remains to be seen, because we've not really seen Conor Benn box at world level. Lewis Crocker is the world champion. You know, like there's talk of Conor Benn, you know, boxing for these. He's called out everyone and his dog, isn't he? You know, like you got to respect that. You know, he wants the big fights, but Lewis Crocker's proven, and he's tough, and he showed that he can weather a storm and come through. Showed a lot of character in that victory over Donovan. You know, you look at that and you just go, look, he's proven against Conor Benn, who's unproven at world level. What do we read into the Chris Eubank Jr. victory? That he showed that he can control his emotions. It was a good victory. It was a big improvement on their first fight. But was it world level? I'm not sure it was world level. Chris Eubank Jr. to me looked well past his best. You know, some would say a shot fighter. You know, he was struggling there. He didn't have no momentum around his work. So it's difficult to tell off the back of that performance, but you know, Conor had to deal with a lot of emotional stuff going into that fight, you know, into the ring walk and with what went on in that last fight. So time will tell, I think, is probably the best way of putting it. But down at welterweight, I'm not sure he can make that weight still.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We'll talk about Eubank in a second, but Conor Benn beat who was in front of him. So let's take nothing away from it.
That's right.
When you're beating that version, an empty Chris Eubank Jr., it looked like. It is hard to know. He wins the second part of that rivalry. He wins the fight convincingly and deserves great credit for that. But it is a strange situation, because it is hard, isn't it, Spence, to know quite what to take away from it, especially when we're talking about him going down to welter.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was at 160 pounds. Dropping down to welterweight is going to be totally different. You know, it's going to be a struggle for him to get back down there, because, like I say, he's not been there for 4 years. But the team have confidence in him. They say that, you know, he can make that weight. So it'll be interesting to see where he lands there. You know, there's some good fights out there, some big fights out there for him. You know, it'll be interesting to see. I think Rolly Romeo's there as well. Ryan Garcia, that was a fight that was named for, you know, Conor Benn, and now he seems to be fighting Mario Barrios for the WBC title. I think that's February the 21st. I think he was showing contracts.
Garcia's announced that himself, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
That's happening on February the 21st. Yeah, there's lots of names, lots of big names. I mean, makeable fights.
And you need dance partners, you know, and there's some good dance partners in that welterweight division. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Brian Norman Jr. tonight as well. I'm looking forward to that fight.
I can't wait for that fight.
Against Devin Haney. Really looking forward to that.
So let's switch to the other side of the argument. I'm going to ask you very bluntly, should Chris Eubank Jr. retire?
I think off the back of that performance, I would like to say yes. I think he's had a long career. He's 36 years of age. And what I witnessed last Saturday was a guy that was a shell of his former self. And I think that he's been a great ambassador for the sport, Chris, and I think he's given us 2 fantastic fights, 2 brilliant build-ups to fights as well. That first one was magical with him and his dad walking into the arena together. That was something that no one expected. He's had a great career, you know, beating the likes of James DeGale back in the day. And you just go, you know what, sometimes it's time to... boxing is a young man's sport, and, you know, you get to the stage where you go, retire from boxing, don't let boxing retire you. It's time to pass the baton, and I think Chris Eubank Jr. is at that stage of his career.
And he's always been so clinical, so businesslike, so sensible about things, making those decisions. You kind of hope that this is going to be the hardest decision of all to make, and you kind of hope that, I share your view, by the way, that in our view, he makes the right one, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I say, listen, I've really enjoyed his career over the years. You know, he's given us a lot of entertainment. You know, we need the characters like Chris Eubank Jr. in our sport to, you know, to propel it, to springboard it to another level. And I think Eubank Jr. has been a great servant to the sport of boxing. And he's been good, and boxing's been good to him. He's earned a lot of money out of the sport. And I go, you know what? I'd just like to see him going on and doing something different, because I like the guy. And you don't want to see him going in there, and I don't want to see him getting beat by people that wouldn't have been allowed in his dressing room to do his boots up back in the day.
And the problem is he's a name, and the problem is there'll be money and temptation.
Absolutely.
But we have our fingers crossed. So, yeah, we posed those questions. What next for Conor Benn? We're not sure about dropping down. If he drops down to welter, we're not sure what happens, and we are fairly sure what we want for Eubank Jr. We've got much more to come now. We've had some big names on the show already. We've had, of course, Lee Wood, been joined by him. We've had Troy Williamson, Craig Richards in the studio. Up next, we'll be joined by Gareth A. Davis, a familiar voice on this show. He's live in Miami working on BKB, Bare Knuckle Boxing, live on TalkSport Boxing's YouTube channel at 1 a.m. Gareth's coming next. This is Fight Night on TalkSport. And welcome back to Fight Night here on TalkSport with me, Dave Farrar, and with him, Spencer Oliver, joined on the line now by a very, very familiar voice, of course. Great to hear from Gareth A. Davis in Miami for bare knuckle boxing. We'll talk that and plenty more. Gareth, first of all, though, our time anyway, very good evening to you, my friend.
Very good evening, Dave. Good evening, Spencer. How are you?
Very well, thanks, Gareth. It seems to be all going on over there in Miami.
Oh, it's amazing. Well, obviously, I'm here Trigon side for BKB starting in about 50 minutes. It's live on TalkSport, by the way. The Night of the Four Kings, 4 world title fights here from 8 p.m. on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel, as it always is. But obviously, yesterday was an amazing day to be here and witness Anthony Joshua and Jake Paul facing off in Miami at the Miami Heat Stadium.
Yeah, I saw a great interview actually with you, Gareth, online with Nikita pulling you up, saying that you was wrong in putting the fight down and saying it shouldn't be happening. But I thought you handled that very well, mate. And also with Jake Paul, who seemed to be very respectful towards you as well. And, you know, he appreciated your faults. It was a great interview.
They were very, very magnanimous, inviting me with a lady called Summer, who was Danielle Moyne from the WWE. We went backstage with Jake Paul, and as you say, Nikita Bidarian called me out straight away, saying, why was I critiquing the promotion? All I did was explain that I thought that there are fears about the dangers for Jake Paul against Anthony Joshua, which I still feel. And it was actually borne out yesterday because Anthony Joshua is not treating Jake Paul lightly. He said he's been in training, as you revealed a couple of weeks ago, he's been in training with the Alexander Usyk camp in Spain. He's really stoked for this. He's representing boxing. He's going in there to bust Jake Paul up. I don't think this is going to be any kind of act. And he's going to look to get him out of there. And Jake Paul looked like David against Goliath when they faced off. And Jake Paul is taking it seriously. He calls it, he has a deluded optimism about himself, like he calls on the universe to give him these challenges. I think he might have bitten off a bit more than he can chew.
Gareth, we've asked a few people. We had calls on this earlier on. I'll ask you as well. You were obviously at the press conference. In your view, and you've watched plenty of it, is this sport?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think it borders the margins of sport, but really it's an entertainment crossover between a man in Anthony Joshua, who is still a massive star in our sport of boxing, and a guy in Jake Paul who has the marketing genius to harness the right opponents in there with him. And I think I can call it a circus, I can call it a freak show. We won't know till that bell rings and how it plays out, whether it will genuinely be very dangerous for Jake Paul. Personally, speaking to Robert Smith from the Boxing Board of Control, he said they'd never have licensed this in the UK. In answer to your question, in summary, I think it's an event that borders the margins of sport. And I think if Anthony Joshua does what he ought to do, it probably ends Jake Paul's tenure in boxing.
Yeah, Gareth, we've had a lot of callers tonight, you know, responding to this news, this breaking news with Jake Paul boxing Anthony Joshua. And there's been a lot of concerns from our callers that a lot of them seem to know their boxing. And the concerns were that, you know, this could put boxing into disrepute because, you know, they are worlds apart, these two, you know, and yet we're still getting this fight. I mean, what is the general feeling over in America, Gareth, like when now this fight's been announced?
There was a big media turnout yesterday for this. There were secondsout.com, we're here, a YouTube channel. We're here from the UK. I was here as one of the few media representatives. There were 300 media here yesterday. A lot of the genuine boxing media were here. I think they're just fascinated by the journey of Jake Paul. And I think what I did notice yesterday, how popular Anthony Joshua is over here. If you watched it, he was very jovial, but he was mean and moody at times. I think he is very comfortable in his skin about doing this, and I think he knows he mustn't take his time or even embarrass himself, that he's got to go out there, land his big jab, and get Jake Paul on the ropes and put him away. And I don't think it's going to be an 8-round beatdown. I think it's going to be Anthony Joshua dealing with Jake Paul. I hope that it's not an agreement and a show that someone carries someone else. I can't believe Anthony Joshua would do that. And he also revealed, by the way, that he would have been on that Riyadh card tonight, on the undercard of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've talked about that. So just to get your sense, Gareth, just to sort of sum up, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to sum up your feeling from that press conference, it's serious. No one's carrying anybody, and Joshua will be looking to get the job done. Is that a sort of fair summation from what you sensed anyway?
Yeah, exactly that, David. I think that we went from the sublime to the ridiculous through the press conference. Ariel Helwani hosting it. Anthony Joshua saying, I'm going to bust him up and I'm going to finish him. Saying the things he does need to say. Being very meticulous about everything he said. Enjoying the American media. Maybe an opportunity to project himself again on the American market. Obviously, it's not a genuine fight as a sense. It's a run out for him, and it ought to be that. But Jake Paul then going to the ridiculous by saying, you watch, when I beat Anthony Joshua, I'll call out Tyson Fury because I'm going to wreck that fight between them, and I'm going to take on the big brother this time. I mean, it sounded ludicrous, but when Jake Paul says these things, he believes in himself so much that it's hard to dispel the myths that he creates. But I don't think he will get anywhere near Anthony Joshua. I think Anthony Joshua will get rid of him quicker than he did Francis Ngannou, or maybe early in the third round. I just cannot see how Jake Paul can cause any harm to Anthony Joshua. I think people are really interested in it over here. The projected figures are 40, 50, 60 million even on Netflix. And my sense since it was announced in the UK is that everybody's interested in seeing it, like a car crash, a rubbernecking moment. See Jake Paul knocked out, or to see Anthony Joshua maybe come unstuck in some way, whether he turns an ankle, God forbid, anything like that. But it's certainly got the fascination factor.
It has, Gareth. You know, it would fall into that, into that space of freak show in many ways. You know, a fight of that's going to be of this magnitude. You said there that you think that Jake Paul could actually get into round 3. Do you actually believe that? And another question I wanted to ask you, the second part of that question is, you've looked into Jake Paul's eyes yourself. Does he truly believe that he could beat Anthony Joshua? I mean, that's bordering delusional, isn't it?
Well, as he said, delusional optimism is what he exists on in this fight world that he's entered for the last 5 years. If Anthony Joshua takes his time and just out-jabs him, he really ought to be able to finish him with that ramrod jab and pivot and hit him with a right hand or a left hook. I mean, I dread to think how much damage he'd do to him. He's a much, much bigger man. Obviously, he's got to make 245 pounds, and he was 252 in that fight with Daniel Dubois 14 months ago, 8 to 18 stone. He's got to lose a bit of weight. But I do think he didn't seem to have a lot of fear when he was looking into Anthony Joshua's eyes. He does believe in himself. He's a very unusual character. It's almost like he's had internet greatness thrust upon him, and he's just crazy enough to have challenged Anthony Joshua at the 11th hour.
Well, he said, didn't he, that delusion is only delusion until it's not, which I must admit I quite like as a line. But and just finally, Gareth, we haven't got that long with you, but talk us through the bare knuckle event. It's the night of the Four Kings, and actually Gustavo Trujillo, the Cuban assassin, defends against Lucas Brown, doesn't he? Both of whom, of course, are gloved boxers as well.
Yeah, indeed. This is ungloved boxing. We've got a Spanish broadcast here. It's some sin guantes, without gloves, puño limpio, bare knuckles, as they say in Spanish, puño limpio here. It's a really big night because of 4 world title fights ending the card. Gustavo Trujillo, as you rightly say, is a destroyer. 7 knockouts in the first round in his last 7 fights. Lucas Brown in only his 2nd bare knuckle bout. Obviously, he's fought in MMA, he's fought in boxing. He's held the WBA heavyweight regular title. It's only his 2nd bare knuckle fight. I do see Trujillo as a big favourite tonight, but also on the undercard as it is, Barry Jones is a brilliant fighter from Wales who's bare knuckle boxing royalty, had 110 amateur and pro boxing fights before he came into this. His record's 11-0 or 10-1. He's up against an American Cub Hawkins in a brilliant light heavyweight fight as well. There's some amazing. There's a Mexican against a Cuban, Fuentes against Fernandez. Earlier on in the week, I was facing them off and doing the interviews, and they had a little bit of a push and a pull. They squared up. It's all very, very exciting. These shows only last 3 hours, 2.5 hours, 9 fights. We're about to get underway very soon. Ash Bash Williams, a former Commonwealth Games medalist from Wales, guy was in the Welsh Regiment, who boxed a lot, is fighting for a featherweight title eliminator tonight as well. There's loads of transatlantic action on the card. As Spencer knows, I'm sold on this stuff. I think it's brilliant. Very, very exciting for the modern era.
I'll tell you what, Gareth, it was great to talk to you. You know what we're not going to do tonight, having had an hour talking about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua, we're not having a debate about bare-knuckle boxing for the last half hour of the show. We've had too much. Gareth, it's great to hear from you. Thanks for painting the picture so vividly for us, both of yesterday and indeed what's going on tonight. And good luck with the show as well. It sounds like an intense 3 hours, so I hope it goes really well for you.
Indeed, and it's live on the YouTube channel on TalkSport Boxing, and enjoy the rest of the brilliant show you guys are putting on tonight. I was listening.
Thanks
Cheers.
a lot,
Great
Gareth.
speaking to you, Gareth.
Appreciate your time. Gareth A. Davis, the one and only. Just one final thought. I was just thinking about this, about how the boxing world changes. We like our history, don't we? Thinking of madness in Miami and stuff. Of course, we talk about this madness in Miami. Miami, of course, where Ali beat Liston.
I know, it's crazy,
You
mate.
think that was controversial? Well, the second fight was more controversial, but you think about how Ali was sort of so otherworldly at the time when you look back at the way he spoke, the way he was, and he was seen as a problem, wasn't he? Ended up being the greatest ever. And he was seen as being a self-promoter. And look at what we've got now in Miami, what happened yesterday.
Absolutely. Do you know what? He was a huge underdog going into
Yeah,
the
it was,
Sonny
yeah.
Liston as well. Yeah, massive upset at the time.
You know the point I'm making, how boxing moves on. I mean, that was if you like, a big mouth back then, and we've got the big mouth yesterday. The two worlds really don't go together. Anyway, up next, before I talk myself into madness, George Glinsky joins the show. We'll bring you right up to date with everything fight sports related on TalkSport.com. This is Fight Night here on TalkSport. Thanks to our friends at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas, we're giving you and a friend the chance to win the ultimate trip of a lifetime to Las Vegas. Picture this, you and your best mate flying upper class from London to Vegas, checking into a luxury spa villa for 4 incredible nights at Virgin Hotels Las Vegas, cheering from the stands as the Las Vegas Raiders take on the Kansas City Chiefs, and to top it all off, £5,000 in cash to play with. So clear your calendar from January the 2nd to January the 7th, 2026, because nothing starts a new year like Vegas. Good luck.
21 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text WIN to 83338. Text at £2 plus standard network rate. Bill payer's permission required. Or call 03434239761. Calls are charged at standard rate. All entries must be received by the 28th of November at 4 p.m. This is a network promotion. Run across TalkSport, Virgin Radio UK and Talk. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Well, this is Fight Night here on TalkSport with me, Dave Farrar, and Spencer Oliver. We move towards the final stretch. And, of course, we've got a big night of boxing coming up. Yard and Benvidez later on. A fabulous set of main events. Combined records of 196-3, and the 3 defeats are all Anthony Yards. But we'll talk more about that in a moment, because joining us now to bring us right up to date with everything fight sports on TalkSport.com is the combat sports writer, George Glinksey. George, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you doing, guys?
Yeah, we're doing really well. It's good to see you, good to hear from you, and you're going to tell us what are the top 3 performing fight sports stories on TalkSport.com. We sort of do a countdown, don't we? So let's, in the tradition of these things, start with number 3.
Number 3 is an interesting report, actually, in the Daily Mail this week. Of course, it's going to be Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua. It's got a feature on the top 3, hasn't it, unfortunately?
Can't believe it's not number 1, George, but, carry on.
Very true, I know. But obviously, Netflix, before they fork out on these gargantuan wages, they've had to pay DAZN in excess of £10 million to break Anthony Joshua from his exclusive contract. Obviously, a long-term partnership deal that made him an ambassador at DAZN. It's a very expensive and quite difficult deal to break. So in excess of 10 million. We don't know exactly how far above that 8-figure region it will be, but very, very high indeed. And that's before the £140 million, which is another figure they're reporting, is being put out there for the 2 men, and even split £70 million each. This is going to be a record payday potentially for both men.
Yeah, do you know what? Simon Jordan was breaking down the figures of this and how they would monetize it, Netflix, and the numbers are insane with the amount of new subscribers that they will get, etc., etc., etc. And the money that Netflix will earn far outweighs what these guys are getting paid, and with obviously what they paid DAZN as well. It's quite mind-boggling, if I'm honest.
It really is. And it was interesting, wasn't it, in that negotiation, George, just staying with what Spencer was talking about, that they wanted a seriously big name. They had Tank, of course, and that, correctly, went to one side. But there was talk of Ngannou, and I know Ngannou, said he turned it down, said the money was insulting and so on. But there was also a sense that even he wasn't necessarily a big enough name for what Netflix wanted, and AJ fit the bill perfectly.
No, yeah, I mean, Ngannou was there. We had Ryan Garcia, we had Terence Crawford. A lot of people came forward. In fact, most of them rejected it. Interestingly, Terence Crawford said yes, but the reason he didn't get that fight is because he wanted it next year. So Anthony Joshua obviously gets that fight. I think he probably would have got it anyway, I believe, at this point. As big as a name Terence Crawford is in the United States, I think globally I would say Anthony Joshua has a larger appeal. But I think Francis Ngannou would have been maybe I wouldn't say any of those names are logical step-ups for Jake Paul, but that one would have been the most interesting, I think.
Yeah, I heard someone describe Ngannou potentially would have been Jake Paul's Super Bowl, and I sort of know what they mean as a build-up to that. But talk us through the second best performing story this week. I mean, if Paul and AJ is only 3, you must have 2 absolute belters coming our way.
What a clever headline, I think. Meet the bare-knuckle boxing Mike Tyson. So people click on that, don't they? Gustavo Trujillo, who's fighting tonight live on TalkSport Boxing. He's the BKB heavyweight champion. He has an absolutely remarkable story. He hadn't spoken about this before. And when we sat down, I was genuinely stunned. So he grew up in a wooden house in Moron, Cuba, joined like any, young man living in poverty, joins the Cuban Greco-Roman wrestling national team with the hopes of getting out of that adversity. And at 20 years old, when he's down and out. He abandons this Cuban national team in the Dominican Republic, spends 5 months living homeless on the streets, gets on a inflatable boat over to the United States and starts an incredible journey, which includes a professional mixed martial arts career and now a 7-0 bare knuckle boxing career with, get this, 7 first-round knockouts. And he fights Lucas Brown tonight. And who knows, he might add another notch onto that record.
George, that sounded exactly like Francis Ngannou's journey. And did you remember the journey that he had as well? He had to go through X amount of countries, and he walked into a boxing gym and said, like, come from the poverty, the background that he had, walked into a boxing gym and said, you know, I want to box. And they said, well, we can't box you, mate, but you can do MMA. And that's sort of pretty much how he fell into his journey as well. Remarkable, isn't it?
Absolutely remarkable. I mean, Francis Ngannou was shoveling sand for a living. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know. That's got to build some power, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's just remarkable. So go on. I think I know what's coming. You've already mentioned one of the fighters involved, haven't you? What's the number one story? I was at the first fight in Vegas back in September. We have Canelo Crawford too, do we, potentially?
Well, potentially. It looks as though Mexican reports are suggesting that negotiations are underway. I'm a little bit baffled, to be honest with you. I thought even the scorecards weren't as wide as I had the fight. I thought, you know, almost a shutout victory for Terence Crawford, who boxed brilliantly on the night. I know that, again, there's probably still some appetite due to the fighters that are involved, but I think the fight itself is pretty much a foregone conclusion. I don't really want to see this one. I would like to see Terence Crawford move back down to middleweight, you know, go for a 6th weight class. That fight with Janabek, I know he's not a huge name, but in terms of a legacy fight, that would be absolutely massive. And, you know, Canelo, he still has 2 fights on his deal with Riyadh season. Potentially we can see him in there with maybe a Diego Pacheco or a Hamza Shiraz. I know these aren't as big as the rematch, but to me, they're more logical.
Yeah, I think it's the commercial value, isn't it, though, the rematch. And I'm amazed, actually, that neither of these guys had rematch clauses in that first fight anyway. With, you know, they're both superstars of our sport, arguably 1 and 2 pound for pound, whatever way you wanted to put that before. Obviously, they fought. But, yeah, amazed that they never had a rematch clause. But I think that, yeah, it just sort of makes sense, doesn't it, you know, from the financial side of things, really.
Yeah, it would be another big event, wouldn't it? But I'm with you, George. It would be hard to see how Canelo gets closer to Terence Crawford. He was so imperious. And the thing about Crawford is he gets better, doesn't he, with every performance? And you could actually see him winning wider. I had it a little closer than you. I had it 9-3 for what it's worth, but not as close as a couple of the judges had it, of course. But you could see Crawford dominating completely. And, of course, the way Crawford's mind works, even though he's up against one of the great chins of the last 25 years, Crawford would think, could I stop him? Could I catch him clean? Could I get to him late? Now I've grown a little bit more into the weight. I mean, I guess that might be the intrigue, mightn't it?
Yeah, I guess that is the intrigue. I mean, he was surprisingly, as the smaller man, the man that seemed to be hurting Canelo. So who knows? I don't see how he can do any better. I guess, as you say, a knockout would probably be that, wouldn't it?
That's why you're a journalist and not a fight promoter, George, I think. I think they'll convince us it will be worth watching. Before you leave us, and I know that last time... Oh, Spencer, did you want to make a point quickly?
No. Go on, you go, please.
Now, before you leave us, I did ask you this last time. I asked you where you were in your house because of your backdrop. You told me you'd moved into the loft because it was, I think it was better insulated. You see, I've got a good memory. But you look to me like you've got a ladder up to the top of your loft now. I mean, you head on the ceiling kind of stuff now, isn't it?
I'm in the attic. We're in this moving process. I don't want to bore people too much, but obviously it's very hard.
Spencer's been doing it all night, George, so carry on.
No. Listen, Dave, that was the question I was going to ask him, because this guy as now making a career out of spending time in attics, and I need to know about this, mate, because this is a fresh one. I've not even seen this attic.
This is a new one. I know there's so many attics. I mean, we're moving from place to place to place. It's very difficult as a young person getting on the housing ladder. We've had, contracts fall through last minute. So we're between houses. Hopefully, they're saying March. Let's see what happens.
That looks like a bit of a tent, mate. You sure you're not pitching up somewhere?
Someone did say TP recently on an interview. Actually, Abdullah Mason said that, yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, sensational name drop and a topical one as well. George, you're very, very good at what you do. Thanks so much for your time. It was great to see you, great to talk to you. Enjoy the tent. Make sure you zip it up. Tuck yourself up in the sleeping bag. And if Spencer knocks on the door and tries to get into the attic, don't let him in. George Glingsy, great to see him. This is Fight Night on TalkSport. Up next, we're going to preview David Benavidez against Anthony Yard, Ben Whittaker against Benjamin Gavazi. This is Fight Night on TalkSport. We're well into the championship rounds on Fight Night here on TalkSport. Sam Noakes and Abdullah Mason, by the way, in a real war in Saudi at the moment. The feeling is Noakes is badly cut, that Mason may be just starting to pull away. Round 6, round 7. Great opportunity for Noakes, who is still in the fight, but he's up against a terrific opponent. We'll talk about the rest of that card to come in a moment, Spencer, in the final part of the show. But we must mention Ben Whittaker in action against Benjamin Gavazi next week. You know a bit about the opponent. What sort of test is this for Ben?
Yeah, he's a tough guy, Gavazi. You know, he's very proven. He's 19-1 with 13 KOs. Not really boxed at any sort of level, but he's tough. He's game. He has that winner's mentality, and he will bring the fight to Ben Whittaker, but it's all about class, and I think that Ben Whittaker has that class, and I think stylistically this opponent is sort of made for him. So, look, good fight and a great opportunity for Ben Whittaker.
Good bit of matchmaking to make him look good potentially and keep moving up the levels, right?
Absolutely, but Gavazi will have different plans. He'll want to rip up that script. Like I say, he's a proud man, and you know, he has that winner's mentality, but Ben Whittaker just sort of has that class, and I think he comes through.
And that light heavyweight scene is pretty interesting, isn't it? At the moment, one of the major players has been in the studio with us tonight. So exciting times ahead for Ben Whittaker in 2026. If you were in charge of Whittaker, because of course he is an interesting character, he's an interesting fighter as well. Be careful of moving him too quickly, I would say. Would you go along with that?
Well, absolutely. I think
we've seen it already with Cameron, of course.
You know, it's a stacked division. You know, here in Britain as well, there's a lot of talent. So yeah, with Ben Whittaker, it's just about taking the right opportunities at the right time, and yeah, that's all it's about, really. Look, he's proved his class in the Olympics. In the amateurs, you know, winning that silver medal. We always know that he's supreme talent. Now he needs to convert that into the professional boxing ring. So they just need to take their time, right fights at the right time.
And he's also got that sort of love him or hate him vibe, which is useful when you're a prize fighter, no question.
Mate, listen, he's an internet star, that is for sure. You know, and I think that he captures the imagination, and he's got that star quality around him. But you have to back that up. You know, and I think he can do that. I think he has that star quality around him, and I'm looking forward to him progressing with his career.
So let's have a look for the final part of the show then at this remarkable card in Riyadh. Of course, those four major fights at the top of the bill. One of them already underway, well underway. Noakes and Mason. And as I pointed out before that recent break, 196-3. If you add up the records of all the fighters involved, the three are the three defeats of Anthony Yarde. And if you look at who those defeats are against, if you're talking about quality, Beterbiev, Kovalev, and okay, Lyndon Arthur, but still, that is pretty remarkable. There are three defeats in those four fights at the top of the bill, and two of those even come against Hall of Famers, potentially.
Yeah.
Hall of Famers, definitely. So it's not bad, is it, Spencer?
No, it's not. It's an incredible card. It really is. I'm really looking forward to Pride Norman Jr. as well against Devin Haney. What a fight that is. And we've got Bam Rodriguez going in against Fernando Martinez as well. That's a brilliant fight. And Anthony Yarde versus Benvidez. I'll tell you what, with Anthony Yarde, he's had a tough run, isn't he? Because, we're talking about getting world title opportunities, and he's had a couple of them already. This is third time. Will it be third time lucky against, Benvidez? You go, but look at the fighters that he's boxed. 4 world titles. You think Beterbiev, pound for pound. Kovalev at the time, pound for pound. And now you go Benvidez, one of the rising stars, and the people that talk about, this guy being the next superstar of world boxing. So he's had a tough run, and he's got a tough fight tonight for sure.
Ducked by Canelo. I mean, you can use that word, no question. Ducked at super middle by Canelo.
Yeah.
Is he as effective at light heavy? Benvidez potentially. It hasn't been so far, hasn't stopped either of his opponents, albeit good opponents, but is he going to be as effective, do you think, as he was at super middle?
I think we find that out tonight because, like you say, he's boxed since moving up. He's had 2 fights at light heavyweight, won both of those on points against good opposition. But now we see him in against Anthony Yarde. Look, Benvidez has a high work rate, a high knockout percentage as well. You look at his record. He's been taking everyone out at super middleweight, and then we get to see what he's really like against Anthony Yarde now tonight. It's going to be a great fight.
It really is. And I just keep thinking back to that Morrell fight. I mean, Morrell was a super middle as well, really moving up. And he staggered Benvidez, no question. And Morrell's a big puncher, but so is Anthony Yarde. And that's the hope, if he can get to that chin of Benvidez.
Absolutely. Listen, Anthony Yarde is a world-class puncher. That is for sure. And Morrell exposed Benvidez in many ways. He showed that, he is beatable. If you catch him with a shot, he showed that he is human. He can get hurt. So Anthony Yarde will be feeding off that for sure.
Benvidez also takes a shot, and he has this.
Oh, he does, mate.
I was talking to someone about it yesterday. He's got this ability, hasn't he? He feels to me like he's able to run downhill.
He's
in
huge.
Fights as they go on, and the engine is just remarkable.
He's huge. He's that's why he's got the name the Monster. He was massive for a super middle. He's big for a light heavyweight, and like you say, the engine on the guy as well. He's got all the qualities that you need. Yeah, he's proved now that he can take one on the chin. He can weather a storm. That's all great experience when you're developing as a fighter. But we know the engine he's got. Like you say, he's like, he's busier in the 12th round than he is the first round. So it is a tough night for Anthony Yarde tonight. A really tough night. It would be a huge upset if Anthony Yarde wins.
Because I've been focusing on the British fighter Anthony Yarde, we've got precisely 3 minutes to talk through 2 unbelievable fights. Bam Rodriguez against Fernando Martinez. Barry Jones would not forgive me if I didn't talk about his favourite fighter, Bam. So, again, This is for WBA, WBC and IBF. It's a big fight, this, for Bam. It seems to get better with every fight.
It's a huge fight. Fernando Martinez, is a great fighter himself, but Bam Rodriguez is pound for pound. We're talking about one of the best fighters in the world at any weight division. You saw the fight he had against Sonny Edwards, who was a quality operator himself, and the way that he dispatched Sonny Edwards, that shows you just how good this kid is. He's jumped through the weight divisions, and he's looking to go on and get a good win over Martinez again, who, like I say, is a worthy challenger. But for me, a worthy challenger for Bam Rodriguez I'm talking about, but for me, it's Bam all the way.
Yeah, Bam is just sensational, isn't he? And go on then, finally, a couple of minutes to talk about it. A welter for the WBO title, but describing it like that just doesn't do it justice. Haney, who is still unbeaten, you forget that, because the Ryan Garcia defeat doesn't count, of course, was really unconvincing in that card, in strange card in Times Square. And up against Brian Norman Jr., who, of course, is a welter, and that's an argument about Haney. What do you think? Because we both think the same thing, don't we?
Yeah, Brian Norman Jr., for me, pulls off the victory here. I think Devin Haney starts a slight favourite going into this one. Brian Norman Jr., though, unbeaten, heavy-handed, comes to fight. And I just think that I saw something in the build-up with this one, and the way that he was focused on it. And when you just look at someone and think, yeah, he's got this one. And I think that Devin Haney has not looked particularly great in recent times. And just, I think, just something tells me that Brian Norman Jr. is going to get the victory. And here I go. I'm going to lay it down here.
You're going to say it's going to knock him out, aren't you?
I think he does it inside the distance. I really do. And that will be a massive statement. A massive statement.
Yeah, it really will be. And you talk of pound for pound. I mean, that throws Norman right into that argument. He's in it already, but it throws him surely into the top 10. Arguably, anyway. There's certainly an argument for it. And as for Haney, even though that Garcia fight in inverted commas, well, it doesn't count. It doesn't count because of what went on. But, when you've seen him hurt and you've seen him down, what's Norman's best shot?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what Garcia couldn't miss with, and that might be the shot to finish it. So you think we're going Benvidez, Yard could do it but won't. Norman to pull off what's a minor upset, I suppose, and Bam to get it done. Spence, it's been great to see you. Great to see you. We're going to stop saying the award winners. We'll say it one final time.
Go on, do it, Dave. Go for it.
But it's fabulous to be with Spencer. And we managed not to have a trip down memory lane. We had so much to talk about. We didn't even have a chance to talk about history. I hope you enjoyed Fight Night on TalkSport. From Spencer Oliver and me, Dave Farrar. Bye-bye.